Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order and have a resolution to adopt the agenda. Need a mover and a seconder, Walt and Nancy. And Mallory's not here to record it yet, so we'll move on. Is she?
I'm here now.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Okay,
Who's
I
our
was
mover?
moved by Walt and seconded by Nancy.
All right. So
Any
I'll
dis-
now. So be it resolved that the agenda for the special meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dysart held on December 9th, 2022 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Being none, we'll move on to the budget review. So I guess the first thing is to bring Barb in and turn you loose, Barb.
Well, thank you, Mayor Ferry and members of council. Good morning and welcome to the 2023 budget presentation. This is the first presentation of, I would say, maybe two or three more. However, what's happened over the last couple of months is senior management has collaborated to put this presentation together and provide you with quite a bit of information. So today's meeting will be presented by all department managers. So I will start off with an introduction and then each department will present. And at the end of each department presentation, we'll open the floor for questions.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is share my screen now and we'll start off with the presentation. Okay, so you should see the first slide of the budget presentation there. So what we'll do is we'll just reflect on 2022 and where we're at right now. The preliminary results are anticipating perhaps a very small deficit, and one area of concern is our landfill. We're looking at right now approximately about $400,000 in additional costs for contractors' services to take care of our C&D or our construction and demolition waste. At the same time, the volumes have gone up. As far as C&D waste goes, vendor fees have gone up. And also tipping fees are relatively lower than what we had anticipated. So we have a little bit of a storm here. Staff are closely watching that, and you'll see that resonate into the 2023 budget as well, where there are some increased contract services for C&D waste. So any surplus or deficit will be drawn from our working funds. And currently at December 2022, we have just over $1.7 million in working funds to help alleviate any sort of deficit or welcome any surplus. So what we'll do before we dive into the budget, I just thought I'd share this little presentation on municipal budgets, and it is a legislated process and what staff is dealing with in terms of putting the product together. So we'll take a look now. Uh-oh. Just cut myself off of the Zoom meeting. Can they still hear that? They haven't. Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Very good. It's left-handed, but I've got my notes on this.
So Barbara, we can hear you there on Zoom. I think with a lot of videos going through the Zoom platform, you can't hear the ping very well. So it's likely that council can't hear what the video is saying because Zoom doesn't optimize it very well.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll just end the video here, and I do
Yeah.
apologize for that technical difficulty.
Because it kind of echoes it as though it's underwater. We've tried this before in the past and
Okay, so
unfortunately
we'll
doesn't-
just, okay. Again, I apologize. Okay, so we'll just move on to the next slide then. This one. Okay, so we'll move on to the first category within the budget development, and that is municipal taxation. So the budget we present today is representing an 8.9% increase on the municipal tax levy. So what does that mean? That means that a residential property will see $27.50 on a $100,000 assessment. Commercial will see $40.78 on $100,000, and the industrial class will see a $47.25 increase on the $100,000 assessment. So we did experience some growth in 2022, just under 1%, and our residential tax base carries 95% of the assessment. At this point in time, the county levy and the education levy have not been finalized. So this graph here just illustrates property taxation, and the green line here is the municipal portion for the residential. And you see the trend is heading upward. If you look at 2019 to 2021, it's relatively flat, and in the last couple of years, it's increased. Same trend on the commercial tax rate. We see that upward trend as well. So this is overall our municipal levy. And again, the trend is heading upwards. In 2023, the total municipal levy is proposed at $11,763,000. 1% levy increase equates to $100,778, and the CVA is still sitting at 2016 rates. So there has not been a CVA revaluation of property assessment since 2016. So any new growth that the municipality experienced in 2022 is valued at the 2016 CVA. And we haven't heard anything from the province. So 2023, there's no change, and we don't know what's happening in 2024 as far as the CVA goes. So 11 million of municipal tax levies. Of that, 54.6% funds our total expenditures, and our total municipal budget is just over $20 million. We received our Ontario Municipal Partnership Funding notice, and in 2023, we're actually seeing a reduction of $99,000. So that's almost 1% on our levy there. And that funding there equates to $225 per household. So these are the three main sources of our funding here. And our first group is the property taxes. And you can see that green bar is heading out. Again, that represents an 8.9% tax levy increase. We also see a large increase on our other non-tax. That there is triggered by a significant draw on our reserves in 2023, upwards of $2 million. We also have some grants in there to fund some of the capital projects. One of the significant federal grants we get is the Canada Community Build Fund. And in 2023, we will receive an allocation of just over $207,000. We do have some carryover from previous years, about $294,000. So we are actually going to be utilizing 100% of our Canada Community Build Fund balance of $501,000 to fund capital projects. So we're looking at some extra road work this year and also some significant work with sidewalks. Provincial grants, as mentioned, our OMPF funding, that's down a bit. We have some Safe Restart money that we've received back in 2020 and 2021. We're going to draw $108,000 from those funds, and main capital expenditure there will be to actually purchase the mobile office at the Rhodes Garage there. So there's some other items in there. Again, we have some emergency supplies that we're funding through that program for COVID initiatives. We have the OCIF, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, expecting to receive just over $159,000, and that will be going towards road capital projects this year. And then we have the Canadian Museum Operating Grant for $16,224, and that will assist with our museum operations. So we'll move on to long-term borrowing. We are going to be repaying $696,000 in debt this year, and that's a combination of debentures for just over $600,000, leases at $32,000, and internal loans of $56,000. So based on the annual repayment limit, and this is a percentage that is provided through the ministry, The municipality can repay up to $2,582,000 in debt per year. So that current $696,000 represents 27% of that total ARL limit. So we're well under that limit, and that does provide opportunity for the municipality to take on debt. We'll talk about our reserve balances here, and I'm going to focus in on our primary reserves, and they are the development reserve, the parkland reserve, parking meter, and cash in lieu of parking. We're forecasting to close out at just over $5.6 million in a reserve balance. That's a net increase of $1.6 million in 2022. However, we're going to be drawing just over $1.5 million in 2023 to assist with capital projects. So it looks that we'll finish the year at just under or just over $4 million. The draw there, we're going to draw just over 2.1 million, and we're going to actually transfer into reserves $568,000. So I just wanted to focus in on the development reserve because that is the largest reserve, and that focuses on buildings and facilities, vehicle and equipment, and roads infrastructure. So the forecast balance for the development reserve is $5.2 million. However, again, you're going to see a significant drop in 2023 of 1.5 million. And again, that is to do with some of our capital projects and equipment that we're looking to purchase in 2023. It is an unprecedented year where our capital projects are significantly higher than what the experience of the municipality has been in the past. So you can see here, we're looking to draw just over $2 million, and we're looking for a pickup truck, 2 tandem trucks, which is unusual. Typically, we try and budget 1 per year, but what we've experienced is the supply chain has been quite disruptive with COVID, and we're looking to get back on track with that. We're looking to inject $122,000 in waste management for land purchases, and then $300,000 for the play structure replacement at the Head Lake Park, and then looking to put in about $175,000 into our municipal buildings for repairs and rehabilitations. So total transfers to that reserve for 2023 is $545,000. Here you can see in 2022, the increase into the reserves, and then in 2023, the significant draw from reserves. Asset management here. In 2021, Council had accepted the asset management plan, and essentially this plan here is looking at $200 million worth of assets, which is quite a large number. And so throughout the asset management, it was determined that there is an asset funding gap, and the plan actually proposed that the municipality transfer 1.7% of the levy for the next 10 years into reserves for the managing assets and closing that gap. So in 2022, we did transfer $172,000 into reserves. In 2023, 1.7% on the levy is about $183,000. The budget you're looking at today does not include a transfer to reserves for asset management planning. Staff kind of felt that the budget's already stressed, and there are opportunities in different areas where we feel that there will be some money injected into the reserves in 2023. The other piece is the sewage treatment plant. That is a user pay system. And the asset management had recommended that an 8.1% increase be imposed on the ERU user fee and the metered sewage usage as well. So in 2023, we're looking at an ERU of $746. That's up from $690 in 2022. And we're also looking at a metered rate of $37.46, which is up from $34.66. So keeping on the topic of asset management, and that does have a big impact on our capital expenditures. We have here a summary of our capital projects. And you'll note here that this is a $2.2 million increase over 2022. A large majority of that increase is to do with roads infrastructure, bridges, and sidewalks. So likewise, we have our funding options here on how we have funded these projects for 2023. And you'll note under municipal taxation that we're requiring an extra $417,000 to help fund our capital assets. So that $417,000 equates to a 3.9% levy increase. So when you're looking at a total of 8.9%, 3.9% is due to capital expenditures. This chart here compares the revenue from 2022 to 2023 for our asset capital projects, and you'll see a significant shift from 2022 to 2023 for the municipal tax levy. That is at 31% versus 40% in 2022, and we're utilizing more of our municipal reserves to fund some of those capital projects. So municipal reserves will fund 46.9% of the capital projects. When we look at expenses, we also see a significant shift from 2022 to 2023. So in 2022, 50% of our capital projects were related to roads construction. In 2023, 40% of our capital projects relate to roads construction, and you'll see a huge increase for our recreation as well. This, excuse me, this chart here is comparing the net change in our revenue and our expense. And again, you can see that there's a large increase on our revenue side for municipal reserves. That's at $417,000. And on the expense side, you can see that there's a significant increase in our recreation. So when we look at overall expenditures for the municipality, and this particular slide here considers both capital and operating expenditures, we note here under transportation that that green bar is certainly forged ahead, and that there again is reflective of those capital projects. We look at recreation. There is an increase there, and again, that is attributed to playground equipment that we're looking to install in 2023. And you'll see under protection, there's a little bit of an increase there, and that's to do with our increase in policing costs for 2023. Overall expenditures again are just over 21.5 million. So we'll just talk about a few items in general government, and we've got quite a few IT initiatives happening this year. We have multi-factor authentication for our website. We have an IT digital strategy. This is a shared project with other sister municipalities in the county. We're looking to modernize to an electronic records management. That cost there is $25,000. We're looking to update our third-party payment provider on our website, and that there is just under $13,000. And then we're also looking to utilize managed detection and response services, and that's an initiative that's recommended from our county IT group. Significant increases to our reserves this year, $65,000, make up $50,000 for insurance, and that is to increase our deductible reserve and also to provide for cyber insurance. And legal, we're looking to create a reserve there, and this year we're putting in $15,000 for that. These transfers to reserves here are to help alleviate any sort of years where there is extreme activity, and in 2022 the municipality did have some unusually high activity within the insurance claims. So this type of reserve will help to alleviate those bumps. Continuing with general government, staff are looking to introduce a new position to the municipality in the capacity of digital transformation specialist. And we're looking to recruit mid-year. So that $45,000 represents 6 months of salaries and benefits. The core of this position is software implementation, system support for software, and to be a primary liaison with our IT county group. So when we talk about digital transformation, I'm just going to move ahead. Okay. So digital transformation, what is digital transformation? So digital transformation is the adoption of digital technology by a business to improve its process, customer experience, and innovation within its industry. So on the left-hand side of the screen, we talk about the citizen, and the citizen are our ratepayers, our taxpayers, and our facility users. So what's happening out in the digital world today is digital innovations are transforming our societies. Citizens are continually connected. They're connected by a smartphone, a tablet, or wearables, such as an Apple wristband. So convergence of technologies and the citizen expectations is becoming more and more prominent. And we as a municipality really need to close that gap. So through this position, on the right-hand side as a municipality, what we need to do is get a clear understanding of citizens' needs. And that is in providing services to our ratepayers in the most equitable fashion. How do we do that? We do that through software solutions that are integrated across all organizations or departments within the municipality. We need to stand back and take a look at how we are providing for our ratepayers? How are we providing these services internally with our staff? So it does overarch across multiple departments, and it is a very holistic approach. We may need to relook at how we complete processes to provide more efficient services, and also look at our digital supply chain. Is it a simple 2-minute video that we post on our Facebook page, reminding ratepayers about new landfill hours? Our environment manager is very engaged with the public and does use different forms of media to send out public messages. So the example that I share with council today is this budget here is proposing to implement a card lock system for diesel and gasoline. So basically, this is an initiative that you'll see in the Public Works budget. However, this does overarch into many different departments. We have vehicles in 7 different departments within the municipality. So the goal here is for this position to be a project lead, implement the software, understand what each department requires in order to be provided with that facility and be able to draw the materials, and also provide reporting, meaningful reporting, analytics, data that management can use to manage the municipality and make very advised decisions. So it will really help with the process of how we manage our operations and provide a service to the municipality. So right now we utilize local vendors in the municipality to provide fuel for our fleet of vehicles and equipment. And this particular initiative here will centralize where our fleet will go to one location. We'll get better pricing on materials, and we'll be able to get better reporting out of the system. It's also risk management as far as fraud. We hear a lot about credit card fraud today, and I can tell you that as a municipality, we are not immune to that. So it really does hone in and create a lot of good opportunity for the municipality. And I just share that one example. We have other softwares that have been implemented by the municipality. And the unfortunate thing is that our senior staff, who are very focused on operations, cannot afford the time to invest in implementing software to its fullest capacity and integrate with our ERP systems. So again, there is a lot of opportunity with this position here. And we as staff see that it can really benefit the municipality, not only from a citizen experience, but from a staff experience as well. So here again are some opportunities for digital transformation. You will review, evaluate, and update your legacy processes. So we look at what we're doing today, how we're processing information, how we can make it better. This position will be a project manager, and take the leadership and promote a culture within the municipality that definitely we need buy-in here for this to be successful for the municipality, and also achieve a strategic alignment on digitalization across the municipality and our stakeholders. So this also aligns with our DISART strategic plan. There is pillar number 4 regarding governance. So this would fit within that pillar, and also on our DISART service delivery review, customer service, on how we provide customer service today. So we'll move on to grants. That's another item in the budget here, and this is pretty typical. Our We provide operating grant to the Rails and Gallery. That amount hasn't changed. That's $50,000. We have a small amount for the Sculpture Forest, West Guildford Baptist Church, our Haliburton Lake Cottage Owners Association, and a few other service organizations. So the total is $71,850. I'll just move on to some of the other areas of the budget that the treasurer oversees. And so under health, that there encompasses our cemetery and our medical center. Cemetery expenditures remain flat over 2022. It's a little bit different for our medical center. This year is opportunistic. We have some additional rental revenue coming in, roughly about $45,000. Our parking revenue remains flat at $24,000. And prior to COVID, we were looking at about $50,000 a year, and it just seems like we haven't been able to recover from that. And just the way some of the tenants in the medical center conduct business by telephone and remote meetings. There's also a capital project in there to replace the parking gates. Back in 2020, we actually replaced the parking infrastructure, and the gates were not replaced at that time. And so now they are becoming somewhat problematic and actually harming the revenue stream coming into the medical center for the parking. Under social and family services, this is our DIMO bus. This bus here is specialized transit. We do receive dedicated gas tax every year from the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario. And essentially that money there does get channeled into a reserve. And through that initiative, we were actually able to replace our DIMO bus in 2022 with the dedicated gas tax funds. The current municipal operating budget does absorb the operations of the bus, and those expenditures are comparable to 2022. So on that note, I just like to share with you another chart here, the piece of the pie, and you can see that roughly 76% of the municipal budget is absorbed between our transportation, our environment, and our recreation. So on that note, that completes my portion of the presentation. I will open up the floor to questions.
Who wants to start the questions?
I don't know the format, but speaking, I'll rewind right to the start in terms of $400,000 deficit at the landfill. How we just ask questions in that regard, or do
Yes,
we?
absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that we're charging by the yard for construction waste coming in.
Yes, we are.
And
yes, and
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so our manager of environment will also touch on this and be able to provide some specifics as far as actual rates go. I do know that tipping fees have not increased for C&D over the last couple of years.
Okay, but it just seems like a lot for 1 year. But
Yeah.
again, if we're charging the contractor by the yard when it gets to the landfill, and then we take it from the landfill, and then we get charged by the ton at the other end to deal with it, I think that's where the gap is, because it'll gain weight sitting there just out of moisture and water from one area to the other.
Totally agree with you.
And that's, I think that's a lot of the deficit that nobody can control. That's my own opinion, but
No, I think you're right.
when we were at it, that was noticeable on that note. So I don't know if there's, I thought I saw a budgetary figure for a set of scales. Did I see that? And I think
Yes,
that's
so Yeah, so over the last 5 years, the municipality has been putting money aside for scales, and including the 2023 contribution, we'll now have $120,000 for scales.
Okay, which is great, but on the same note, it doesn't solve the problem of the moisture problem. And I think that's what part of the problem is. So we can
Yeah.
still weigh the material coming in, but it's that gain you're losing when it's going back out again. But anyway, that's just the point I was.
Well, I don't think one set of scales is going to do it, because if there isn't scales at West Guilford and Knees and everywhere else, you'll go where there's no scales.
Right.
So I don't see that as a solution right away. But I
Yes,
agree
and
with you.
staff-
What happens here, we didn't take the construction waste out the last 2 years in the winter. So we get 3 feet of snow on top of it, then it rains for 2 days, and we pay by the pound. And you're right, when it gets to the other end, so I think we need to stay on top of that a little more.
Look at that, or even, you don't want to spend more money at the landfill, because we don't know how many more years it's going to be actually in play over there. But if you built some sort of a shelter to keep that rain off it, or keep the hydration out of it, might be a way, but anyway.
Yeah, no, you're right. There are lots of questions, actually. So, go ahead, Nancy.
So Barbara, I was just going back through the digital transformation specialist. So the per year's cost of that is that will be that roughly like 0.9% on the levy, like for the total cost of that position.
So the amount presented today is just for 6 months. So yes,
Right.
that would be doubled, correct? If you were looking at 12 months employment.
Will that be a contract position then, if it's 6 months?
Staff were looking at full-time.
How many people, more full-time people are we adding in this budget? Do you have a total for that, or?
There's 3 positions and there's 1 in general government.
Well, Nancy, you have more?
No, Samara.
Okay,
Oh, no, I was just going to add to that, but I think Barbara covered it. I think the 6 months was just because it was starting in July this year instead of starting earlier in the year.
some of these things, I just don't understand if we get a system in place and it's all electronic, why do we keep on keeping the person on staff all the time? I just don't, I need to understand that.
Well, I think what it is there's the once the software is implemented, it's an ongoing job to keep it running. Like there's always an update to the software. Pretty much every couple of days there's an update. So somebody's got to process that. When they want to make one software talk to another, for example, CityView talk to our building software, someone's got to work through all those connections and make sure the security is there in place and make sure it's going to meet all the IT policies that are in place set by between the county and ourselves to protect all the cyber risk. Another example that Barbara didn't provide was our mesh software. It's our inspection software that started off being used in the roads department to record work they'd done, maintenance, potholes, whatever. And it's since, so it started there. Rob was the one championed it because that's what he needed for that time and thought they'd pilot it in that department. But now it's become evident that it's very useful in the other departments as well. So Parks has been using it for a couple of years. But it's still Rob looking after it for the other departments. And that's not really Rob's job. He's supposed to be looking after public works. And he's got this little side job as an IT guy. And that's happening in every department. Carl had to work through with his staff trying to get the building software up and running, which was taking away from their time actually trying to do building work. And they still haven't got the septic inspection stuff online because they just haven't had the time to focus on that. So it's those kind of things that are happening on an ongoing basis. I know it takes up a lot of Barbara's time too, because a lot of it, as she noted, integrates with the ERP system. because there's payments for everything that we do. There's applications and payments, and they all come back through. It's a very complex network, and the county IT does a great job for us. And this is all stuff that's way outside their mandate. They just wouldn't have the time to even look at this stage, maybe in the future, but right now that's not their model.
Couple of other questions, Barbara. The trailer out of the garage, how much is that costing us? That's a used trailer, isn't it?
We've actually been leasing it for the last couple of years, and that there will be $55,000.
Sure.
And it's actually, we're going to draw the money from the Safe Restart Fund, so there will be no impact on the municipal levy.
Okay, and you got $350,000 for the park equipment in there. I thought we got 150 from Trillium. Does that mean it's 500,000 we're spending now, or is that
Actually,
100?
yeah. And so there are two separate projects happening right now. There's the replacement of the playground equipment that was removed last year, and that there is 350,000. And then there's another project for another accessible structure for 150,000.
Oh. Okay. A lot of money. A lot of money.
So just to clarify for council, the replacement of the playground structure in Head Lake Park, staff were given direction from the previous term of council to draw the money from the reserve funds. And then there's $50,000 being raised through a committee, a donation committee.
So, okay, I missed that. Then I didn't see that it was, that's not costing us any money on the taxpayer then.
No,
If we're
because
taking
it's being
300
drawn. Yeah,
I didn't see that here, but anyway, maybe I missed it. Okay. Any other questions? I guess we'll hear from the departments now then, will we?
okay. So if there's no more questions, then
You thoroughly
next-
confused us, I think.
oh, okay. It's not meant to be that way.
No, I know it's not, but it's a lot to absorb and then try
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah. There's a lot of information that's going to be presented today.
Okay. Do we need to take a break, anybody, or we good for a little bit?
Okay, so we'll go back to sharing the screen, and I believe Mike March is going to be joining us.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning, Mike.
Shall I proceed?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. So good morning, Mayor Ferry and members of Dysart Council. For those that don't know me, my name is Mike March, and I am the IT Director for the County of Haliburton. And today I will be presenting the IT recommendations for the 2023 budget for Council's consideration. So for the new members who may not yet be aware, the County of Haliburton provides IT as a shared service to its 4 municipalities. As part of that service, I work with the CAO and Treasurer annually on a list of IT projects for budget consideration. Every annual budget, an IT capital asset plan with scheduled equipment replacements for the upcoming year is included. Typically, computers are replaced on a 6-year schedule, while other networking equipment is typically replaced every 5 years. The budget also includes the internet costs for the municipality, server hosting fees, annual licensing expenses, and new project recommendations. The budget does not include the costs for technology systems where the contracts are not managed by the IT department, such as your financial system and municipal website. IT expenses are not captured in a separate IT budget or an individual IT budget. Rather, those expenses are allocated to the various departments. And just one last note, often the county and 4 municipalities will cost share on technology where possible and where it makes sense to do so. And you'll see that throughout the presentation. So next slide, please. So for the rest of the presentation, I'll talk about project recommendations for the upcoming year. First project recommendation is the implementation of an electronic document records management system in line with the Ontario Municipal Records Management System, or TOMRIMS. So the goal of this project would be to put in place a system to manage the entire life cycle of corporate records, from their creation through to their destruction. This ensures that important information can be found quickly and easily when required. It also ensures that records are being kept in accordance with Dysart's records retention bylaw, reducing risks from the accidental destruction of records. I know your municipal clerk and all the municipal clerks are quite excited to get this project going, if it's approved, of course. This project is proposed to be a collaborative initiative between the county and the 4 municipalities, and it was one of the technology recommendations that came from the Haliburton Joint Service Delivery Review. Next slide, please. So in 2023, we do have a number of cybersecurity related projects planned to enhance the security posture of the municipality. Many of these projects flow from recommendations from a cybersecurity assessment that was completed in 2022. Others are the result of stricter requirements for cyber insurance. First here on the list is a managed detection and response service. So this will help detect and alert and remediate cyber threats that exist or that could potentially exist on our networks. This is planned to be a joint project with the other municipalities in order to reduce costs. Due to the sensitive nature of some of the ratepayer information that's currently being collected through Dysart's corporate website, we're recommending that multi-factor authentication be enabled for all staff logins. By implementing multi-factor authentication, we're adding an extra level of security to staff logins by requiring users to complete an additional step in the authentication process. By adding this additional step, we are reducing the likelihood that website login information could be stolen, potentially leading to unauthorized access or disclosure of the sensitive data stored within the website. And lastly, there is a line item included for miscellaneous cybersecurity initiatives. Typically, we would use this for penetration testing on either our internal or external networks. However, it could be used for other projects that are deemed important by the county and the municipalities. And again, like most of the budget expenses that are controlled by IT, we try and cost share between the county and 4 municipalities. Next slide, please. Deferred from 2022 is a project to upgrade our Microsoft SQL server. SQL is the backend technology that manages the databases for many of our line of business applications, including the municipality's financial system and the building bylaw management platform. Due to the proprietary nature of some of these systems, we do require assistance from the companies themselves to perform the migration. And because we are pooling costs with the other municipalities, I do fully expect that this item to come under budget when the project rolls underway next year. Next slide. So another recommendation that came out of the Joint Service Delivery Review was the creation of an IT digital strategy. The goal of this project would be the development of an IT roadmap, which would provide a plan for technology needs and investments for the next 5 years. By aligning what the needs are for the county and the 4 municipalities, we could identify more opportunities for collaborative purchasing and standardize the technologies being used. This would potentially lower costs for everyone and facilitate better information sharing between the departments within the organizations. Strategy would also help to identify areas where technology could facilitate better service delivery to the public. And again, like a common theme throughout this presentation, this is proposed to be a collaborative effort with the county, and the county will be covering 50% of the costs, again, pending county council approval, of course, with the other 50% split between the 4 municipalities. Next slide. And lastly, I did want to note a project that had been discussed between IT and Dysart staff, but was ultimately removed. And that was a project to install multiple cameras in the Dysart council chambers. I understand that with the budget challenges we are all facing this year, this may not be a high priority project for council, hence the reason it was excluded from the budget recommendations. However, staff did want to bring it to your attention in case council wanted to put it back on the table, so to speak. So that's the end of my presentation. I appreciate the time council has given me to present these recommendations today, and I would be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Any questions, Mike?
So with all these new strategies and stuff, would our digital transformation specialist, if that's the route we choose, be involved in any of this? Like, would that take away some of the dependence on county IT?
Well, I think with this project, it would be definitely collaborative between the county and the municipalities. So a lot of these projects now, when we bring them forward, we're bringing them forward through the service delivery review. It's not a committee; it's a group that meets. So anybody that the municipalities want to put forward to work with IT on this, and we're happy to work with anyone.
And that's who we would put forward. It would be our liaison for that because they'd be the most schooled and, and knowledgeable on the subject matter. But Mike brought up a good comment as well about the records management software. That's another excellent example. If we get to the point where we actually are looking to implement something like that, that's another piece of software that would rely on an internal person to help coordinate that project implementation in conjunction with IT.
Well, the only thing I've got to say that I've been watching this stuff for many years, and every time I hear somebody say they're going to increase technology to save money, I'm still waiting to see the save money part. So, Mike, I'm taking you at your word that this is going to save us some money. How is it going to do that?
Which are you referring to? Which specific initiative would you be referring to?
Well, I don't know, but twice there you said this would save time and money.
Well, so in terms for the records management, I think if you were to talk to any of the county, municipalities, department heads throughout, you would probably find examples of times where there was information that was needed and that they struggled to find. Throughout the years, a lot of information builds up as management and managers turn over. Sometimes a lot of that information is lost. So with a records management solution, the goal is to have one place, the information is all stored logically and easily to find with keywords associated. So if you want to take a look at all the documentation related to a project that happened 10 years ago, the goal is that all that's in one complete place. I don't have the numbers handy, but I do know in part of the joint service delivery review, I think there was about $80,000 or so of just staff time that was identified that's lost in the current process for finding documents and so on and so forth. So there is that piece. But there are other, I don't know if they're cost savings, but there's other benefits to having a records management program that are not cost related. And that's just having that information at your fingertips when you need it. Being able to pull this up and be able to use past information to help facilitate and inform future decisions. I hope I explained that okay.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, any other questions for Mike? Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, we'll bring our next presenter in and.
Barbara, I think we're going to take a 10-minute break. I had too much coffee.
Sure. Oh, okay, that works.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Barbara.
All right, so our next presenter is Dan Chumley for the Fire Department, and I shall share my screen. Okay, Dan, take it away.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning,
Here to
Dan.
present the fire budget as proposed. Not 100% sure how this goes. We'll just work our way through it. We've thrown in some couple of pictures there just to give you guys an idea of some of the stuff we end up working in. So for our safety, you can see in that case, we've got lights and cones set up. That's the kind of stuff we're end up out in. Sure, some of you gentlemen have worked in those types of circumstances yourself. Sorry, Barbara, go ahead, please.
Okay, yeah, just let me know when you're ready to advance, Dan.
Yeah, will do. So you can see here, here's the volunteer wages based on last year's estimates. And I believe whatever final numbers that Barbara has to work with at this time. And we're going forward from that. Now, I understand you guys can all read these yourself. I'm just trying to explain partly where ideas come from. Based on past experience, we end up with about 6% call volume increase over the years. You're going to see in next week's council report that the call volume for the month of November, the last couple of months have actually been lower, but the different types of calls, the actual hours have been longer. Some of the medical calls were only 4 guys for maybe 1 hour. We have a structure fire, we have 15 guys for 3 hours. So that's it's all guesswork, but this is what we're working with based on other items that are there. So you can see here, instructor wages, that's another important thing. And with our in-house training, these are programs that we're working with the other municipalities on. So for you that aren't the council members that aren't familiar with this, we have a county-wide program that we're training our firefighters. And we're doing most of the required training within county boundaries now, between a blended course for online and in person for the skills. And so there's now mandatory certification. And so it's more important than ever for us to get these taken care of in a timely fashion. Go ahead, please, Barbara. As you can see again, we do get some exciting times when we get out. They're not all so sad. One more, please, Barbara. So personal protective equipment, that's what the PPE stands for. That's our firefighting ensemble in particular. For the bunker suits, that all goes together. Those all need to be replaced for us to do. It's a mandatory thing for us to do internal attacks for a structure fire. We're supposed to have gear that's all within a maximum of a 10-year lifespan. So with approximately 30 members, we do need to make sure we're rotating through those regularly. And then there's also, sorry, that's on another page, the maintenance of that. So the SCBA fiber bottles, those are for our air packs. It's like a scuba tank without the U for underwater. And those are used more and more often now at all fires we're going to, because we are trying our best to make sure we're not breathing in these toxic environments. And with plastics and different things and stuff, even if it's an exterior fire, we're trying to be more careful about making sure we're wearing our protective equipment for the duration. The proposed dry hydrant mentioned on there, that's for us to use access water. Since we don't have town water, it's pressurized. We can set up these hydrants. Basically, it's a spot for us to physically attach the truck to and be able to draft or suck water from a permanent location. We're hoping to replace the one that's down by the town docks. Next, please. So these are just going to show you here. These are actually in last year's budget, but just so the council members that weren't here are aware of, these were purchased. And this is, just one example of the specialized equipment that the firefighters use that some you might not be familiar with in your day-to-day passing. Go ahead, Barbara. So that's a picture of those same lift bags in use. and they can lift huge quantities. Just give you an example. For practice, the one night the firefighters went down to the dump and actually lifted the excavator that's down there for the construction debris, just to see what capabilities we had. So that's what that kind of equipment is for car accidents, and possibly even as simple as somebody at the dump maybe sliding down between where the metal bin is. We could shift that metal bin out away from that wall to access somebody. Next, please, Barbara. So equipment testing, inspection, and repair. Because safety is such an important concern, almost every piece of equipment we have has an annual inspection. Ladders, all the pumps on the trucks, our air packs that I was just talking about, the SCBAs, the face pieces we sell that we wear, we actually have an annual testing that the firefighters make sure that if somebody has extreme weight gain or weight loss, we want to make sure we're getting a proper seal so that you're actually able to breathe from the environment that's provided as opposed to taking in the toxic environment we're working in. Next, please, Barbara. So here's, you can see an example of a firefighter standing, the flames aren't very close to them at this point, but you can see how much smoke and steam is coming off of that stuff. And that's certainly a toxic environment where that firefighter would be. And that particular night was a very, very cold night. And actually our equipment was even freezing. So we had to take time out to thaw them out to start again. Next, please, Barbara. So building maintenance, your basic stuff, certainly furnace, equipment and stuff to maintain the floors, building fire inspections, that I believe includes us going door to door. That's for the extinguishers and those items as well. And hopefully that's regular maintenance. Unfortunately, repairs do add up. We actually had a garage door opener that had to be replaced this year. A couple of surprise things like that. And actually, it's not on the budget because last night, when I was getting ready to leave here, the water pump died. So it was replaced last night. So that's something that has to be mentioned. These things are just surprises because of the age of the building. We're trying our best to keep up with things. Next, please. So you can see this is just another example of some of the equipment that we have here that we can use for the general public's services. In this case here, that's I believe at Halliburton Forest, and that's from some snowmobile there that we would have brought out in our rescue boggin. That's our snowmobile rescue boggin there that we've met with Orange Air Ambulance there to transport the patient out. Next, please. So computer support, that's for items that Mike March would have mentioned, some of the resources we're already making use of. So the online training, we're trying to make sure all of our firefighters are up to date on our standard operating procedures. FirePro in particular is used for all of our records management and allows us to submit all of our mandatory statistics and items to the Ontario Fire Marshal. And the Who's Responding app is a phone app that we use for getting our pages out. So we do have our radio paging system, but the phone app is a secondary system which allows the firefighters to go back and replay the messages so they know specifically for further details. And then it's also can be used as a mapping system for us to see how far firefighters are away from the hall when we're ready to roll trucks. So we can make sure that the trucks are leaving here with a full complement of firefighters. Next, please. Another example, again, the air pack's on, a little warmer conditions. With our full PPE though, it can be quite hot. So I have to make sure even for what appears to be a smaller fire, it's still quite a duration of somebody having to wear an air pack to make sure we're being protected. Next, please. So this refers to some of our contract items. So Highlands East in particular covers basically the Harcourt area for us, just because we would have to travel out through Wilberforce and our response time would not be acceptable for the protection of our citizens. So these are just the kind of things that we need to be aware of, making sure hopefully they don't fluctuate too much year to year, but we do have contract for these items. Next. So I was just thrown in there just to see another example. That actually is on Kinesis Lake. The air ambulance pilot was somebody who's familiar with the area and was comfortable to land right on the lake. So we brought our patient right down to them in that particular location. Next, please. So these are other service contracts. So certainly we need to have the radio towers. That's where our radios and paging systems are set up from. Fire call dispatching, that is through Lindsay Dispatch, the ambulance dispatch. It's provided for the initial call out, and then the firefighters, we do sort of our local dispatch from our desk here. The MNRF, that is for coverage for the inaccessible portions of the municipality for brush fire, wildfire circumstances. Next, please. So annually, we are required by law to do a certain amount of emergency management training, practice, exercises, and just the organization of it. What we have been working on through the service delivery review is recommended that we try and come in alignment with the 4 municipalities within the county. And so we're working together, and we actually have an emergency management group came in this year as a contracting service to provide us with training, and they went to all 4 of the municipalities as well as the county in order to help us bring our emergency management training into alignment. And then we can, in the case of a large scale emergency, the different municipalities can send personnel down to stand in for somebody, you know, for sleeping breaks and that sort of item for long-term durations. And then the fire master plan, that is something that's been legislated that we're going to be requiring to have by 2024. And so at this time, this year, the county was doing a CRA, community risk assessment. And so at this time, we are working with them to provide the information, and they're going to be able to take that information and at a cost savings to us, it's going to help us provide our own community risk assessment and fire master plan over the course of the next 2 years. And as it's required, it's estimated that it's going to actually be $40,000, as it says on the slide there. We're hoping that can be allocated over the next 2 years. So that's why it's only listed as the 20,000 this time, but it's anticipated to be another 20,000 for next year. Next, please. So there's just an example of, this is our actual site that we use for live fire training for our countywide recruit program. You can see there the different bunker gear that everyone's wearing, different colors. It's because they're all from different departments. That's for one of our training days. Next, please. So vehicle repairs and maintenance, there's just regular annual servicing and safeties, those items. There was a concern that one of our truck pumps might need to be rebuilt because it did pass the pump test, but it was getting, it was closer to the limits than is usually expected. And I think over the history of the pump testing is showing that it's potentially getting weaker due to wear and tear potentially on the vehicle. So it's concerned that we may need to have that truck pump rebuilt, and that's why that's in there. And then everything else is based on more so on the previous year's regular maintenance and repairs to try and give us an estimate that we have there for our year-round maintenance. Next, please. So that sort of ends the presentation is what I have for you. Just a couple of quick things. Somebody's actually painted those rocks and set them outside the fire hall door there. During COVID, when people weren't able to see people, it was just a way to reach back. And the picture there, the other is the community living building right across from us. And that was another way for them to reach out to people. So I guess I'm open to any questions if I can answer them.
Any questions for Dan? Nancy?
This isn't totally budget related, but the dispatching through CAC Lindsay, that's $9,000. Do they have all the issues resolved with the paging? I know at one point the pager was going off and no messages were being left, and it was causing quite a bit of confusion. Is that all been fixed?
So it's not really a technology problem. It's an issue for the individual dispatchers themselves, because the process has changed a little bit. It's very straightforward and the information is provided to them, but there's a little bit of confusion on the timing. And I'm not sure if it's just because of the background they're working in, but there's a beep that lets them know when it's time for them to speak. And I think they're not hearing that beep, some of them, so they're not speaking until the time frame is almost closed. So the system itself is working, it's doing what it needs to. And some of the more experienced dispatchers are having no issues with it at all. It seems to be as they bring in new employees down there, they are not necessarily familiar with it yet. So yes, it is getting better, but we are still having the occasional call out where the tones are going off and we are not getting any voice communication. But we discovered if the tones are going off, we are not getting any false alarms. If the tones are going off, we are needed. So we are doing a follow-up and we are getting firefighters out to those calls.
Dan, coming up, is there any units getting timed out that you're gonna have to replace in the next while or?
So I'm looking at, I believe 2027 is the next replacement for our truck replacement, and it'll be our heavy rescue. So we refer to it as number 5. It's a Ford F-350 currently that has access for 2 firefighters in the back. So they're getting more expensive all the time. Certainly, Barbara has a system in place that's allowing for capital replacement, as far as I understand.
And we still do put money aside every year, don't we, for replacement of trucks?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And I believe Barbara has a formula that allows for inflation, is my understanding. How she tried to explain it to me once.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you, Dan.
All right, thank you. And come on over anytime to learn about the equipment yourselves.
Okay.
Okay, so our next presenter will be Carl for the Building and Bylaw Department.
Okay, Carl,
Carolyn?
whenever you're ready.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, so the building one, I only have a couple of slides, one for building and one for bylaw, and they're going to focus on the changes over 2022. So the first one is, again, in 2022, we did bring our septic maintenance inspection program in-house. We have tried a couple of different ways to do it. This is definitely the best that we've come across so far, using our own staff to actually complete the inspections. It's the most organized we've been. It's the most coordinated we've been with this program, and I definitely see a need to stick with this process. So that was something that was brought in, I think after budget last year, but we managed to successfully bring that in-house. So the other big item is we're going to be requesting to hire an additional permit clerk position. So we want 2 permit clerk positions, and the reasoning for this is actually further down. So over our 5-year average, we have a 26% increase in our permit activity. Right now, our main stumbling block, our dam of permit applications coming in is at the permit clerk position. So reviewing the applications for complete applications, completing their, putting them in their processes, getting them to us, that's about a week wait. And then I'm another maybe week to get to that application. So that's something I want to greatly improve. And based on the permit activity, the permit fees, we do have the ability to pay for that. And we are also going to be increasing our fees. This has been a process I've been working on for quite some time, pre-COVID, but it was stalled because of COVID. But we want to increase some of our building permit fees and decrease our septic permit fees. We're seeing record number of permits, especially a record number of septic permits, largely due as a result of our septic reinspection program. But just the number of permits are just increasing considerably. And right now, that's the only position that we really need to replace. Others are nice to have positions, but this would be definitely a position that would be needed to maintain the level of professionalism and how quick we get to applications. I hate having applications sit there, people waiting for their to hear about their applications. And that's something that's increased this past year. So that is one position that we want to that we're going to be proposing. Staff training. So again, starting from scratch again, this is the same thing I have on the slide every year because we keep losing building inspectors. It's a problem with the industry itself. It's not just us. Everybody's short building inspectors, but when you lose a building inspector, it's hard to replace them with a qualified inspector. You basically have to train them in-house. And a last inspector, we didn't actually lose, we still have her, but she's now supervising the sewage system maintenance inspection program. So we do have a brand new inspector and we're currently training him. Actually, we're in training right now. I'm in the kitchen of the arena above the arena, just so I can do this budget presentation. And Bree has actually taken over the training session. But it's something that we have to keep doing. And right now we're doing something a little bit different. We're just opening it up to everybody and trying to get a pool of people that are qualified out there. And so far it seems to be doing fairly well. So that's kind of what we're hoping for staff training moving forward. But it's going to be a continuing process for sure. In 2022, we saw over 2,000% increase in the number of orders that we issued. We're over 100 orders right now. It's just ridiculous. It's a big part of it is actually our sewage system maintenance inspection program. And these are people that did not comply with the voluntary path that we gave them. But others are people just building without permits. There's been a large increase in that as well. I'm not sure if that has to do with the large number of properties that basically changed hands when the buying was good, and these are new owners coming in and just building things. But it's something that has just spiraled out of control. And we have to do something with those orders. So that's going to be part of the bylaw slide. But like I said, with 26% higher in permit activity, that's a huge increase in our permit activity. Like we used to be about 500 permits. Now we're well over 600 permits a year. And it's like, where's it going to stop? I'm not sure, but and I did mention that we are proposing revisions to our building bylaw. That's coming up at the next council meeting. Hopefully you guys have seen that so far in the council agenda. But that's going to be one of the big things that the building department's going to be doing this year, because it's been a considerable amount of time since we've changed our fees, and they are very low in comparison to outside Haliburton County. Haliburton County, we're all still kind of consistent, but just kind of bringing them into a competitive rate, I guess. Again, we're not going to be anywhere near a competitive rate, but just increasing them slightly. Next slide. So bylaw enforcement. So one of the changes with bylaw is we're looking to hire an additional bylaw officer to deal with increased building code orders and zoning compliance issues. So these have just spiraled zoning orders, building code orders, and as well as zoning orders. I'm not sure what it is, but they're just out of control, and just trying to gain some control on them. We need an additional officer. So what we're looking for is somebody that's going to be in the office, have an office position, and then have a field position. So basically that office position is going to be doing a lot of things like preparing and serving our orders. So our building inspectors are having to spend a lot of time doing the orders or following up on the orders. One of the big things that we're going to be doing is a monthly order review. So we quickly lose track of our orders, and they go stale. They've been sitting around for a year or two, and it's like, well, now we've got to follow up on these. So this position is going to be doing a monthly order review. And one of the fees that we're going to be changing in our building bylaw is we're going to be implementing a order review fee. And that's a monthly fee. That's going to be a $500 fee for any outstanding order. We're going to be sending them a letter, letting them know that their order's outstanding. What are you doing about it? And as well as giving them an invoice that's a $500 fee for this. How much longer is that order going to stay outstanding? Probably not very long, but that's one of the fees that we're going to be implementing, and that's going to be paying for this position or half of this position anyway. The other thing that they're going to be doing is preparing a prosecution briefs. At some point, our orders are going to have to turn into prosecution briefs, as well as a lot of these zoning issues that we're coming across. They're going to have to be taken to court. So we need somebody to basically coordinate that whole process. It is a complicated process and needs somebody that is dedicated to that process, because I don't have time to do that. They're going to be doing lottery licensing. Lottery licensing, for whatever reason, is something that is hated by staff. So this position is going to be doing lottery licensing, covers for when the other officers absent, and like I said, 50% of the position we pay for through permit revenue. So that's about it for my presentation. Are there any questions for building or bylaw?
Questions, anyone? Nancy?
Just a rough idea, what would the cost of this position be? I know 50% would be paid through permits, but what's the other 50%?
You have that figure, Barbara?
I don't have the exact figure, but you're looking at about, with what wages and benefits annually, you're looking at about $55,000 to $60,000. So half of that's about 30,000.
Is that the bylaw, Nancy, you're talking about? Bylaw. Any other questions? Well, I kind of like your budget, Carl. You're coming in around 1.7. We like that.
And
Thank you.
our fees, yeah, our fees typically pay for everything, for the building and the bylaw. And again, it's a lot of it is it's a strain on the tax base.
Yeah.
But the building department isn't. So that's a benefit of our department, I guess.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be a burden on the taxpayer either. It should be paying for itself. That's great. Any other, no questions? Well, thank you, Carl.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we'll bring our next speaker in, and we have Kate, who's going to talk about the museum.
All righty, I think we're all good here. I may have to flip my camera off. I've been told a couple of times this morning that my internet is unstable, but we'll see how it goes. So for anyone who hasn't met me yet, my name's Kate Butler and I'm the director of the Haliburton Highlands Museum. So just wanted to tell you a little bit about the museum and what we do as we talk about the budget process this year as well. So Haliburton Highlands Museum, we were founded as a Canadian Centennial project. So back in the 1960s, that means that we've been in operation for over 50 years. And in the time that the museum's been in operation, it has grown substantially. So we do have our main gallery space, which you can see on the left there. We also have Reed House, which was the museum's original home when it first opened in the 60s. So that's a village home dating back to 1882. And we also have a series of log buildings, which date back to the late 1860s and early 1870s. And they were all, like Reed House, moved to Glebe Park, where we're located. They were moved, log buildings, in the mid 1980s. But all of those buildings depict what life would have been like for the early European settlers coming to the Haliburton area. Next slide, Barbara. Thank you. So in terms of what we provide at the museum, in addition to caring for the huge collection that we have. So in addition to the historic buildings, we also have thousands upon thousands of artifacts, historical documents, historical photos we care for. But in addition to being all about those items, of course, it's all about the people. So we're really a place that's all about keeping our community's history safe and showcasing it for residents and also for visitors to the area. So in terms of who comes to visit the museum, lots of local residents, lots of seasonal residents, but also visitors from all over the world. And that's been really exciting to see coming back again after a couple of years of unusual times, shall we say. So yeah, museums are community spaces. And increasingly in the last couple of decades, museums have come to be seen more and more as community hubs, very much in the same way that other institutions like libraries, those community spaces, which do more than what their original mandate would have been, say 50 or 100 years ago even. So museums also, we provide opportunities for people to learn new skills through programming, through workshops. There's been all kinds of studies done that show the incredible impact that museums and museum visits have on people's health and well-being. In fact, in some parts of the world, doctors are actually prescribing visits to museums to people as a way of increasing their well-being. So there's proven research behind that. And as I said, we're about giving that sense of community identity in addition to connection, and it's a way to share our community stories as well. So yeah, it's a busy place. We say there's always something happening at the museum. Next slide, please. So as I said, 2022 was very much it was a year of recovery for the museum because we had a couple of strange years there, just for reasons you well know, a couple of years that were strange for all of us. So 2022 was a year of us being able to start bringing back some in-person programming and to start to see visitors coming to visit from a wider range of places. So seeing those international visitors back has been extremely exciting. Although I will say, all the way through the pandemic, the great support we got from local residents and people exploring locally, we really, really appreciated that. But it's also exciting to see that international mix and Canada-wide mix coming to us again. And 2023 is going to be a year for more programming, more events, and really and truly getting everything back where we wanted and continuing to grow in the way that the museum has been growing over the last decade. Next slide, please. Right. So in terms of some of the revenue coming into the museum, so we do get some revenue from admissions. So the museum operates on an admission by donation basis. That's very important to us because we always want to make sure that the museum is accessible to visitors. So our visitors are very generous with what they put in the donation box, but it's important to us that we have that flexibility. We also generate a bit of funds through book sales. So a couple of different titles that we sell. There's a book we put out a few years ago, good few years ago now, called Haliburton History and Pictures. So book sales from that, and also another book called Fragments of a Dream. So that helps a little bit. Also, we receive a community museums operating grant every year, and that is, it sits at $16,224 and has for many years now. So I'm going on the assumption it will hold at that. But that grant helps with some of our operating costs. So we greatly appreciate receiving that. Next slide. So just in terms of some expenses, just highlighting a few key items. So at the museum, we have a staff, year-round staff of 2, myself and our curator. Also, we like to have a summer student to assist during the busiest months of the year. So from about mid-May until about Labor Day. So when we have all of our historic buildings open and are also trying to run programming, having that extra set of hands makes a huge, huge difference. Other things, just to quickly mention, programming and events, exhibits and conservation, advertising, cleaning for our building. We have lots of visitors coming through, so that just means that we need that extra bit to help out with cleaning. Office supplies, computer equipment and support, costs there that, some of the sorts of things that Mike March would have been talking about earlier. Staff training, so to help us stay connected with the wider museum community. So attending conferences and the like. Utilities, so heating and hydro, all those sorts of things, and our costs with insurance. That's just a few key items there. Next slide, please. So as we have so many buildings here at the museum, there's always bits of maintenance work that needs to be done. And one of our ongoing projects at the moment is some particular maintenance work on Reed House, the 1882 village home, which you saw a picture of earlier. And so we've been addressing, there's been a bit of an issue with dampness in the building for various reasons. And so some work has already been completed and is actually currently ongoing in the building at the moment. So some work on the basement, basically to reseal the basement floor and deal with moisture that may be coming up through the basement. But we also still have plans to do some work in terms of adding some venting to the roof, and also to address a bit of an issue with the chimney, which is a little crumbly at the moment. And once we do that, then that is going to help in terms of the longevity of the house. Now, we haven't been able to get everything done yet this year. As I'm sure you all know, contractors are run off their feet at the moment with all of the building that's going on around our community. So yes, we've managed to get some done, but we still have some things on our list. And so since there have been unspent funds, we hope to simply carry over some of those funds so that we can get some of that, well, to get the rest of that work done in 2023 to get the house back on track. Now, in addition, we have also been advised that the museum is in need, our main gallery space is in need of a new furnace. The current furnace that we have at the moment, it's an oil furnace. It's nearly 30 years old, and it seems to be simply just near the end of its life. We can get another winter out of it, from what I understand, but at a certain point, we won't be able to get service on it anymore. We won't be able to get Phillips for the tank that we have. And Rob Parrish has done a fantastic amount of legwork, consulting with contractors to find out what we need and how we can maximize in terms of energy use for the future. So the quotes that have come in are coming in around in the region of $50,000. That also will include, what I understand, a bit of work to increase the number of vents that we have in the building. And I think perhaps to help with a little bit of the duct work to help make all of that work more efficiently, because we have discovered that our current furnace isn't working at the highest efficiency it could be, because of the fact that we have a smaller number of vents and ducts in the building that would perhaps be ideal. So I believe Rob has gotten several quotes so far, but we'll continue looking into that. But it is something that definitely looks like an item we need to invest in. And also, some of our other historic buildings do need some work. I'm hunting up granting opportunities to see whether there's some way we can find money through a program assisting specifically with renovations on historic buildings to help with some of those moving forward, either next year or in the years to come. Because of course, once buildings are 150 odd years old, they do need work. It's part of the nature. They need that upkeep and that extra TLC from time to time. So I think that's all for me.
So that's Kate, that's one furnace that's being replaced, right? Because I understood there was three furnaces being replaced.
We have a furnace for downstairs and up. Well, one for downstairs, one for upstairs. So that's to replace the whole system.
Okay. So it's one then.
Yeah. Well, it's for the one building.
So I find it funny that all three furnaces would go at the same time, but that's just me, but maybe but so we know that, do we, for sure?
We've been told that yes, it's the time it needs to be done.
Nancy?
I just had a question for Barbara, because this is a reasonably big ticket. Would we put that out to tender as opposed to just getting ideas from here and there?
Yeah, I believe there have been a few quotations submitted for the project. We haven't looked at tendering that.
Kate, have you been talking to the grants person about applying for any grants for the museum this year?
We're definitely looking at options. Yeah, so I don't have anything specific in mind yet, but there's certainly I believe there could be some opportunities through either Canadian Heritage. I'm also going to consult with some people I know through the National Trust. So hopefully we can find some additional opportunities there.
Sometimes things like furnaces are the easiest to get because that's capital. Anyway.
True.
Just asking.
No, it's definitely worth considering. And no, I will do I'll do some more looking around and see if there's any way we can find a way to help with that.
Any other question? Okay, thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll bring our next speaker in, and that is Jeff Files, and he will present the planning budget. Okay, take it away,
there,
Jeff.
Yes, good morning. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Good, fine. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. So this is version 1 of the Planning and Land Information Department budget. Version 1 proposes a 14.7% increase, which is approximately $56,000. This increase is mainly attributed to incurring a full year of costs related to a staffing increase from 2022. Other than the staffing related increase, there are no major departmental requests for 2023, which I will explain during my presentation. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with revenues, and this is the application numbers. As per the graph provided, it indicates the application number trends and projections, including 3-year averages. The numbers for 2022, as well as proposed numbers for 2023. Application numbers, they typically remain fairly consistent from year to year. There are minor fluctuations. While we can't control the number of applications received, we do like to take a reserved approach when calculating these projections, which is basically using that 3-year average. And I find this kind of protects the municipality from fluctuations. Next slide, please. So this chart highlights the revenues received from those planning applications. Most projections were achieved in 2022 with a couple of outliers. In 2023, we will benefit from an entire year under the new fee structure, which was updated in May. So for 2023, I'm projecting a modest increase in revenues of approximately $12,000. Next slide, please. This chart summarizes the total planning application revenues. As you can see, 2022 revenues are estimated to fall slightly short of the original projections by about $4,000. The projected revenues for 2023, as mentioned before, are indicating an increase of about $12,000, which is roughly 6.7%. Next slide, please. Expenses. So the big ticket items remain consistent for our department from year to year. These include staffing as well as legal and consulting fees. Other notable expenses include the Cultural Resources Committee budget, staff training and memberships, Committee of Adjustment member per diems, as well as advertising, which is typically advertising for staff or committee member recruitment. Next slide, please. Legal and engineering. So we're just taking a closer look at this. Similar to previous years, I'm requesting $15,000 for the department. These funds are used to protect the municipal land, public interests, and they also support council and committee decisions at the Ontario Land Tribunal. Some of the way these funds were used in 2022, we have some ongoing legal matters within the department, obtaining legal services at times, but also to commission surveys, background studies, that kind of thing associated with municipal-led projects. Next slide, please. GIS. So CityView, I'm just going to touch on CityView, which is it's a software. That's the big ticket item under GIS. It is the internal GIS and permitting system that is used by most departments. It is used to store building permits, planning applications, bylaw applications. This is where staff go to look up general property information, such as ownership, addresses, and all information associated with those properties, such as legal descriptions. CityView also includes mapping. It includes a mobile component for the building department for building permit inspections on site, as well as a web portal component for the building department. Due to an increase in staff throughout the municipality, an increase in CityView users, we are requesting 3 additional licenses this year. 1 full license is being requested at a cost of $2,000 and 2 seasonal licenses at $700 each, which are used for the septic inspection program. And in my opinion, if you saw what CityView does to save staff time, these costs will be recovered in staff production. Next slide, please, Barbara. So this is my last slide, which shows the final numbers being proposed. Based on my review, I'm projecting a net planning increase of, as I said, $56,000 or 14.7%. Just to mention it again, the increase basically relates to the full year integration of a staff person that was hired in October. And that ends my presentation. So I thank you for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Jeff? Yes, Councillor Roberts.
Jeff, when do we have to do our official plan review? Is it soon? Is it in 2024?
No, it isn't that soon, because we last updated it in 2018. And we actually completely repealed and replaced our old official plan. So when you do that, it doesn't have to be updated for 10 years. But you're right, typically it's on a 5-year cycle, but we don't have to do it until 2028.
We'll probably be doing it anyway with the changes in the provincial legislation. do an
Yes.
amendment at least.
You're right. There's several changes that we're working on behind the scenes related to there were two major bills recently passed, Bill 109 and Bill 23. So it's making major changes into what we can do during pre-consultation processes, just to make sure our planning application fees don't get refunded during the process. So, yep, there's lots going on behind the scenes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you all.
Okay, so we'll bring our next presenter in. We're going to be moving on to Parks and Recreation, and I believe Jim Blake is going to speak first for the sculpture forest in Glebe Park.
Go ahead, Jim. Are you there, Jim? Coming? That's good.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
I'm just fixing my technology here, Murray.
Go ahead then, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good to see you there in the mayor's chair.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just landed in here, so I'm not sure where everybody's at or what's been introduced, or so just give me a lead in here, Barbara.
Yeah, so we're just starting the Parks and Recreation, and so you're the first speaker for that area, and so you can speak to the sculpture forest in Glebe Park.
Okay, so does council have the Glebe Park budget in front of them?
Yes, they don't have it in front of them, but they have been provided the details. Yeah.
Okay. So there's been, if you've been following things, there's been a lot of work being done in Glebe Park over the past, well, actually past quite a number of years, but the last year especially. And a lot of this has been impacted by the municipality transferring land to the college for the building of the residences. And the agreement in the MOU with the college was that the municipality would tear down the existing garage, which is used for the storage of all the ski trail grooming equipment, and build a new one in a different spot in the park. And also the main trail for all the ski trails went right through that piece of land as well. And the agreement was that those trails would be moved. So that's obviously caused a lot of work happening in the park. So for 2023, we're hopefully going to complete all of that. The garage is well underway. If you look at the expenses for 2022 for Glebe Park, you can see, a very large amount of money there. Most of that is capital expense, and that will be covered off by the capital fund, I believe, at the end of the budget year. There will be some more capital expenses in 2023, and those once again will be covered off by the capital fund for that. So then we're looking at just the regular operating budget of Glebe Park. For the councillors who are new to council, Glebe Park is managed by a group of stakeholders. This was set up around 2005, I think, when the college went into the park. And so they're representatives from all the organizations that are involved in terms of managing different parts of the park. So everybody works together with the municipal staff and councilors to plan for and to manage the park. So some items that still need to be completed in terms of capital for next year. The trails, there's a couple of trail loops in the park that are lit for the public to be able to go skiing there in the wintertime at night. And some of those trails have had to be moved because of the college residents going in. So those lights have to be moved as well. So that's going to be happening in 2023. Also, over the last couple of years, when trails were first developed in the park, probably 40 years ago, the private landowner that was next to the park said, "Oh, you can put trails wherever you want on my property." Of course, that property has changed hands. And so it was really important for us to get all of the trails off of private land and onto public land. So that's happened over the last 4 years. By doing that, we now have an incredible set of walking trails in the upper part of the 150 acres in the upper part of the park. So we have a lot of people go walking over the past few years because the private owners didn't want people walking on their land. That caused a problem because people couldn't follow the trail around. So that's all been done. But of course, with all of that change, things need to be re-signed. Trails have changed for the public. During COVID, we saw an incredible increase in the use of the park for biking, for walking, for skiing, for people coming to the sculpture forest. So this is a great thing in terms of the municipality. We've been putting a lot of work into the trails over the years, and we've got a great set of walking trails here in Glebe Park, which is connected up with the Head Lake Trail, which goes all the way around the lake, and then connects to the rail trail, which goes up to Barnard Creek, and then there's a whole lovely set of trails there. So we've actually got a fantastic set of walking trails now in the community. But with all of that, of course, then signage has to change. The public has to be informed properly in terms of where they can go on the trails, et cetera. And the trails have winter use, and they also have summer use. The sculpture forest in 2020, in the first year of the pandemic, saw the attendance of the sculpture forest quadrupled in 1 year's time, and which was a great thing in terms of people coming to the community. We had all sorts of people coming from the GTA just to come to the sculpture forest because it was something they could do during the pandemic. And with that, a huge amount of social media. It was covered by all sorts of television stations. We have millions of people actually looking at the social media for the sculpture forest. And for a lot of people, their first point of contact with Dysart and the county is actually the sculpture forest. And then they come and say, well, what else is there to do? So for the past year, we were able to access the sculpture forest in collaboration with Glebe Park. We're able to access about a $100,000 grant from Tourism Relief Fund. And what we found with that increase of people in the park, all of a sudden, all the trails were getting beaten down. It was just, stairs were old wooden stairs were falling apart, et cetera. So we've been able to replace all of the wooden stairs with granite stairs, get all of the trails refinished. We're rebuilding the sign kiosk at the entryway at the college parking lot. And so getting that rebuilt. So there's information about the walking trails, the biking trails, the museum, the college, municipality of Dysart, Head Lake Trail, the sculpture forest, ski trails, snowshoe trails, the toboggan hills. So when people arrive in that parking lot, all the information is there for what they can do in the park. So that's a general just overview of what's happening in Glebe Park. Questions or comments from council?
Any questions or comments? Well, being none, Jen, you've done a good job. Answer all their questions.
Well,
Thank you.
thanks, Mayor Fury. I remember sitting on this committee with you back in 2005, I think is when we started on this, and the park has become an incredible asset to the community over that period of time. So thank you to the municipality and the municipal staff for the wonderful collaboration, and all our stakeholders who have contributed to that.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, so our next presenters are Andrea and Andrew, and they'll present Parks and Recreation.
Okay, Andrea, whenever you're ready.
Okay, good morning. Thank you. So I'll be speaking to the slides, and then I guess if there's questions at the end, either Andrew or myself can answer them. So next slide, please. So some of our responsibilities in the Parks and Rec department include maintaining parks and public boat launches, and you'll see a map in a moment which outlines how many we have, cleaning of the portable washrooms and the washrooms at the Welcome Center, garbage removal in the downtown core and all the parks, winter snow removal from municipally owned buildings, creating and facilitating recreation programs, special events, coordination, management, and planning, assisting with grant applications and funding, the operation of the Haliburton Welcome Center, operating the arena, and maintaining municipally owned buildings. Next slide, please. So this map here, some of the toggles or the icons overlap, so it's difficult to see where everything is, but this just gives you an idea of the area that the Parks and Recreation staff have to cover. So it goes to the boat launch up in the far left corner, up in Quagama Lake, all the way over to Kenaway and Elephant Lake Road and everything for Harcourt area. So there are 98 different areas in which garbage is removed through the Parks and Rec department. 10, actually now that number should be 9 portable washrooms, and then there's the Welcome Center as well. Snow removal. So what happens is in November, the park staff switch over and they go from being like predominantly garbage removal, cleaning of privies, this, that, and the other, to snow removal. Although with the snow removal still comes cleaning the Welcome Center washrooms, cleaning the privies in the areas that where they're maintained throughout the year. There are some areas where garbage is still removed and maintained, and other things as such. There's all parks and playground maintenance. So we have playgrounds at there's still swings there in Head Lake Park, and then we have Eagle Lake, West Guilford, Haliburton Lake, and then there's a little bit of equipment out in Harcourt. There's 28 boat launches, so some of those see a lot of use and some of them not as much, but they do go out and maintain them. We have 7 public beach areas. There's trail maintenance for 2 trails, grass cutting in 5 different areas. So we have a company that does like Head Lake Park and some larger areas for us, but then which is contracted out. But then our staff also have certain spots that they have to maintain, where they have to maintain the grass. We have 9 different buildings to maintain, and then there's water testing that occurs at 12 different locations throughout the municipality. Next slide, please. So this map too just outlines, it shows the buildings that we have to maintain. Where the stars are, those are areas for year-round water testing, and the water testing happens once or twice a month, depending on the location and what's deemed essential by the health unit. So it's quite a big role, very important to do. We also have in the summer, spring, fall, and summer, there's some other spots where we have the outdoor water taps. So we have 4 outdoor water taps, which are only available in the nicer weather, and those are also maintained by our park staff. They open them up in the spring and then they shut them down in the fall, so that way they don't freeze through the winter. Next slide, please. So we have the arena, and for those who don't know, the ice is maintained basically from the beginning of the summer until the Easter long weekend. So as soon as Easter hits, the ice is pulled from the arena, maintenance is done to the pad or in the arena facility. And then mid-June, the ice is put back in. We have a contract with Hockey Haven and they use the ice throughout the whole summer. Plus we have evening and weekend rentals. As with every year, there's a reserve, $10,000 towards the Zamboni because it's on a 10-year replacement, and then also $5,000 a year for the arena truck. And this year, the main capital request over at the arena is a dishwasher for the snack bar. Next slide, please. And then when it comes to parks and municipal parks and building capital, they're looking for a utility trailer, approximately $6,000 in cost, and it's an open flatbed trailer to be able to maneuver the lawn equipment and other equipment as needed, because quite often they have to lift it into the back of a truck, which gets quite heavy and cumbersome. The boat launch refurbishment. So this is in addition, there is a regular maintenance item or maintenance line for $10,000, but this is in addition to be able to fix the boat launch. As you can see in the two right images, that's the Wilkinson boat launch. The concrete pads were shifted and moved. So they had to go do some damage control, but to fix it properly, they're looking at a $30,000 request in the budget. A cap for the maintenance operator's truck. So at the moment, it's an open bed truck, but they're looking to put a cap in so that way the tools and everything for the building maintenance can remain in the truck and be locked. An outdoor privy for Harcourt. This is a request that's come through. And so they're looking to put a privy similar to what you see at Glebe Park or Eagle Lake Beach over in Harcourt. In West Guildford, urinal and toilet replacement for $19,000. So the urinals there are leaking. They have been temporarily fixed, but they're going to continue. It's just a temporary fix. They were leaking into the basement. They're not accessible, and they're not low flush. So if they were replaced, it would fix the leaking, and hopefully they can be put onto the low flush system, which saves water and serves energy. And also a lighting upgrade for West Guildford Community Center of $5,000. Next slide, please. So as you've heard, and I'll be reporting to this at council on Tuesday, Head Lake Park Playground is up for replacement. So we're looking to install playground equipment in the spring, valued at around $350,000. As Barbara had mentioned earlier, the previous council committed $300,000 from the reserves. And then the fundraising committee is looking to raise a minimum of $50,000. There's also been a grant that was applied for an accessible playground of $150,000. And the idea is that the playground will be a mix of natural and prefabricated elements, and to complement what we already have there. So we already have swings and some structures like that. So we won't be removing those. We'll just be working within that plan. And then the playground is designed to be for ages 2 to 12 years of age. That's 12 seems to be the max when it comes to playground equipment and what they design. Not saying you can't be older, but at least 2 to 12 years of age. Next slide, please. So our staff in the Parks and Recreation Department, we have a Director of Parks and Rec, Manager of Programs and Events, an Arena Supervisor, 1 Maintenance and Facilities Operator, 3 full-time Parks Operators, 3 full-time Arena Operators, and 1 seasonal Arena Operator. Next slide. So in our maintenance plan, there's to replace the snack bar floor, that's $2,000, and that's something that the health unit has requested we do. The museum and outbuildings, Kate spoke to the museum earlier. There's some Reed House repairs for $5,000. I'm not sure if any of you have been by the bandshell lately, but some of those timbers are in desperate need of TLC and restaining, so we're looking at $1,000 there. As I mentioned earlier, there's $10,000 and just for general boat launch repairs and maintenance. So every year, at least at 2 of the boat launches, there's gravel or other equipment needed. So that's a standing item that's in there. Glebe Park landscaping, and we provide that as in-kind help for $1,500. So usually there's a day or 2 where the park staff meet with members of the Glebe Park Committee and they head out and do some trail maintenance and everything there. The drainage at the rear of the medical center is in need of being fixed, and so that's $15,000. And the eaves trough at the curling club needs some rehabilitation, so that's $5,000. Next slide, please. So as you know, over the past few years, things didn't get to operate as we had hoped or expected. So this year we're working to growing towards some of the programs. Last year, we was really happy to be able to offer youth soccer and women's only soccer. Just alone in those, we had over 130 kids registered in youth soccer. We're looking to bump that number up. And then with women's soccer too, we had close to 40 people. We ran ball hockey at the arena, and we were able to bring that back again last year, which was nice. We have the Jolly Jog, yoga classes at different times throughout the year at the arena and in the park. And we assist with other programming as well. So it's nice to finally get things going again. We have applied for a grant for soccer to see if we can increase numbers and pay for a coordinator. So we'll see if we're successful with that grant. That application just went in this past week. Next slide, please. So the Haliburton Welcome Center, it opened its doors last year in July of it opened in July of 2021, but we were only allowed to have like one person in at a time. So the numbers this year, even in 2022, there was a month where we were shut down to the public. We could only offer the exterior washrooms. So between like February and October, we had 6,341 visitors in through the main doors of the Welcome Center. So that doesn't include the exterior washrooms. It's just people coming in to interact with staff. We have people from all over coming in. We have people that are local residents just wanting to know about other opportunities or looking for information because they have people coming to visit, as well as people from, out of province, out of country. We've had many international visitors this year. So it's neat for the staff to interact with them and to promote tourism in the area. I've said this before, but many of the people come in, look for, like, one of the number one questions is hiking trails. That's one of the number one things that we seem to get asked about. And we always get compliments about the cleanliness of the washrooms. So we're striving to maintain and keep the washrooms looking as good as they did the day we opened. And I think that's it for our slides.
Anybody got any questions? You had 350,000 for the playground equipment. I know that's essential. And then another 150 for accessible playground equipment. Is there not some way of when we add 50,000 or something to the 350 and do it all at once?
We're definitely looking at combining. We have to make sure if we're successful with the grant that we keep 150,000 allocated separately, and that we show that equipment is purchased with grant money. But there's definitely, we're working with the company. We didn't ask for
just seems like a lot of money.
$500,000. We didn't ask for a $500,000 price tag. It's there's some back and forth going on right now with them to see. So no, definitely it can be.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Anybody, any questions? Yes.
Andrew, didn't we do something with the eavesdrop at the curling club in the last couple of years? Or has it been longer than that?
It's been longer than that. We've done things to stop the leaking in the basement, which was caused by the eavesdrop being broken. But just finding a contractor and stuff to work on that commercial building has been really difficult, especially through COVID. But we're still working on that, and now that we have a maintenance operator, a lot more can be done to find a suitable contractor that can fix that. Just because it's not regular eavesdrop, it's commercial and it's built right into the roof.
Andrew, going back to the equipment down at the park there, was that put out on a tendering process, or were just kind of a RFP, or what was that?
So we had to have quotes submitted for the grant. We've been working with initially when we went to council, there was a request to have a blend of natural and prefabricated. So when I asked if we needed to tender, there's only 2 companies that do natural playgrounds, and one of them only does natural. So I was told that because we're looking for a blend of both, we can source it. Now, if that's different, we can definitely go out to tender. That's for sure. But there's only one company that does both.
I see. Just if there's a combination of natural and the other one you mentioned, is it better to go with something that lasts a lot longer? Like, are we looking at a a time where that natural features like the wood will time out in 10 years and we'll have to spend another, $300,000 to $500,000 again,
So interestingly, because we had the same questions and we've asked questions, and we asked the same question of both play companies that do the natural playgrounds as well as the prefabricated. So the natural has more upkeep initially. You have to stain the ends of the timbers over the first 3 years. There's a lot more maintenance. They have a 25-year warranty. The prefabricated playgrounds have a 15-year warranty. So and the prefabricated, initially you have less maintenance, but then as the years go on, there's more maintenance. So it's both will have to be replaced within, like the one that was taken out now, I think was there for 15 years. So they don't last forever. Neither one is perfect. So it's a matter of what I think council wants to see and which one will be, or if we can do a blend, what's the best option for everything.
25-year warranty sounds good to me.
They're more expensive though, so that's why we're looking at a blend, because those natural ones, when you see the price tag, your jaw drops for sure. So
It's always expensive when you don't have an alternative.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work with the community committee that's working on the fundraising to try and identify the features that work best for the current group of kids that we have out there. And I think they're providing a lot of input through these regular meetings and the back and forth with the companies to try and get something that works to bring to council.
Any other questions then? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Andrea. I'm kind of confused here. So what is this park, the equipment going to cost us, like in the perfect world?
It really depends on what the final design
We
is.
get the $150,000 grant.
So if we get the grant
Sorry.
is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tamara.
I was going to say that the grant was a separate process that was just outside of the overall replacement of the existing park equipment. That was a nice to have if we can get it, because it's totally accessible. And council at the time didn't want to hold up the process of moving ahead with the design of the main piece because it would be contingent on a possible grant. So they directed to go ahead with that and keep the two separate. So the application to Trillium does show council's commitment of 300,000 towards a broader park.
Okay.
One other thing too, when you see the plans that were provided for the grant application, that playground equipment is definitely a primary playground geared more towards ages 2 to 5, 2 to 6. It doesn't hit the older kids, and even on the playground committee too. Like there's a lack of elements within just that accessible playground for the older, for 8 to 12-year-olds. So that's part of what, like with having the natural elements or having another piece, that would speak more to the older kids.
We should be able to use some of the in-kind work we have to do down there against that 150,000.
And definitely companies are willing to do that. It has to all get worked out and back and forth. And we're
Counting
still
on you
in
to be
very
creative here.
Pardon?
We're counting on you to be creative.
Yeah, and we're in some preliminary stages right now, back and forth communication with the company. So I'll definitely be bringing reports forward to council. I'm sure you'll hear about the playground for the next few months for sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll call on our next department, and that will be John Watson and Rob Camelon for the environment.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John
Morning, John.
Watson. I'm the environmental manager here at Dysart. In the presentation today, I'll be highlighting some activities within the department in recent years, as well as present the draft 2023 budget for environmental management, detailing some of the projects and work expected to unfold in 2023, and also identify some upcoming changes within the municipal waste management sector that are approaching us. Next slide, please, Barbara. Council may not all be aware, but back in May of 2021, so last year, the department initiated a number of substantial changes to its policies and procedures. We had a new waste management bylaw start on May 1st, 2021. That was the first substantive revision to the bylaw since 2006. That new bylaw included the introduction of a 3-bag limit for garbage and also introduced guidelines for special events taking place on municipal property like Head Lake Park. We also had new waste disposal fees started at that same time, and the last time the fees had been updated was 2018. And also at that same time, we changed some of the operating hours at our 5 waste disposal sites or landfills. That was the first time the landfill hours had been changed in approximately 14 years. We also had some additional changes to our winter hours in March of this year. Next slide, please, Barbara. This year, we undertook a number of different initiatives within the department. The first was the waste composition studies. This is where the garbage and recycling from households is collected and then sorted into approximately 100 different categories to help us understand what is actually appearing in the garbage and recycling. We issued an RFP and AET group won the work. They conducted 4 waste composition studies this year, representing each of the 4 seasons. Subsequently, Continuous Improvement Fund, which is an industry stakeholder committee, they actually granted Dysart $32,000 to use the raw data that was gathered from those studies. The results from the waste composition studies help us understand what's actually in the garbage and in the recycling, and that can help us implement new waste diversion programs or promotion education efforts to get people recycling properly, because we'll know what's actually going where. Another major initiative this year was the Food Cycler Pilot Project. This involved 100 households in Dysart participating in a 12-week pilot project. Those 100 households were selected from 244 households that originally registered to be part of the pilot project. The food cycler, if you're unfamiliar with it, is approximately the size of a bread making machine, and it turns food waste into a compost product after about 8 hours using electricity. Those units typically cost $500 retail. The vendor received a federal grant to reduce the cost to $250. Dysart contributed $100 per unit, so the participants paid $150 to purchase their food cycler. The participants during that pilot project tracked their weekly usage and completed 3 surveys. What we learned from that pilot project and from the feedback from the participants was that 97% of the participants planned to continue using the food cycler after the 12-week pilot period. And also 98% of the participants said Dysart should continue offering the food cycler as a way to manage food waste in their households. In the waste composition studies, we had learned that there's a fair amount of textiles, clothing, bedding, linens appearing in the garbage, even when we have reuse options like Lillian and Thrift Warehouse in our community. So Dysart issued a request for proposals to find a textile recycler. It was awarded to Cornerstone to Recovery, which works in partnership with Recycling Rewards. That's provided at no cost to Dysart. So all 5 of our waste disposal sites have these purple bins to collect textiles. And in the first 3 months that project was implemented, August to October of this year, we've diverted 3.32 metric tons of textiles away from landfill to be recycled and reused. Next slide. Another major initiative in 2022 was our Household Hazardous Waste Days. New this year, the 4 lower tier municipalities collaboratively worked on an RFP to secure a vendor to do the collection, transporting, and processing of household hazardous waste. Dysart actually issued the RFP on behalf of the 4 lower tier municipalities. Buckham Transport was awarded the work. Dysart hosted 3 events in 2022, and we actually collected 25.49 metric tons of household hazardous waste at those 3 events. We also signed a new intermunicipal agreement, which allowed any Haliburton County resident to attend any of the events in any of the lower tier municipalities. So there was actually 14 events that Dysart residents could access throughout 2022 to drop off their household hazardous waste. Next slide. So in 2023, we are projecting $1,376,750 in revenue. Part of that is made up of user fees, being the landfill cards, composters, digesters, $111,000 in the sale of the scrap metal that we collect at our 5 waste disposal sites, $634,000 in disposal fees, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. We also have revenue projected of $173,750 from program funding, and this is for the extended producer responsibility EPR programs for blue box electronic waste, household hazardous waste, and then $454,000 in contributions from reserves. I'll just talk a little bit about the disposal fees. So next slide, please. Currently, Dysart charges $10 to drop off a mattress, box spring, or piece of furniture. This is the lowest tipping fee for that type of material compared to the other Haliburton lower tier municipalities. So in this budget, we specifically have increased that tipping fee to $20 per mattress, box spring, or piece of furniture. So that would increase the revenue by an additional $34,000. So that's how we get to that $634,000 in disposal fees as the revenue. Next slide. In terms of expenses, we're projecting $3,252,760 in total expenses. That's broken out into wages and benefits and professional development, hauling and processing in our household hazardous waste days, environmental monitoring, reporting and studies, and then operating expenses. I'll talk a little bit about the hauling and processing and operating expenses and what is making up kind of the drivers of those initiatives there. Next slide, please. As was mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation, construction demolition waste definitely has been a primary driver in our increasing expenses. To date in 2022, Dysart has managed 26% more construction and demolition waste, C&D, than in all of 2021. But in 2022, hauling and processing costs have increased 93% compared to all of 2021. It was interesting to hear my colleagues, Carl and Kate, talk earlier. Carl saying in the building department, the increased activity they have around building permits and construction permits, and Kate talking about the challenges of securing a contractor to do some construction work. It really just speaks to the how much activity the building, construction, renovation sectors is having within Dysart and within the entire county. And we're seeing it on the other side with that increase in tonnage of material that we are having to handle and process. Just as an example, in 2022, we started hauling construction and demolition waste in March, and we are still hauling construction demolition waste in December. So it was only January and February that we did not haul any material this year. In 2021, we did 103 transport truck loads for the entire year of construction demolition waste. This year, we're already at 132 transport truck loads of construction and demolition waste coming out of our 3 sites that collect that material. C&D fees that we charge to residents and pre-approved credit accounts have not changed since 2021. In the 2023 budget, for example, we've on residential transactions, so simply on the residential side, people paying as they go, we've budgeted 4,800 cubic yards sold at $60 per cubic yard, which comes in at $288,000 in revenue. If we were to increase that fee to $65 per cubic yard, that would bring in $312,000 in revenue. That has not been reflected in the budget, but if council were to direct us to increase that fee on construction demolition waste, that is something that we could accommodate in a second draft of our budget. Next slide, please, Barbara. In terms of some of our operating activities, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, MECP, they have some very specific requirements for us that they expect us to do at Haliburton, Kinesis Lake, and West Guildford landfill. At Halliburton Landfill, we've allocated $300,000. This is for the reconfiguration of that site to be a full transfer site. This is primarily because we have to cover and cap the closed landfill. So this is going to require significant amounts of fill and final cover. We also have to regrade the slope of the landfill to get it as close to a 4:1 grade as possible, and then also reconfigure the drop-off areas to make it much more usable for the public to access the drop-off bins. At Conesus Lake Landfill, we've allocated $33,000 to purchase the portion of land adjacent to the Conesus Lake Landfill to complete the contaminant attenuation zone that the ministry is requiring us to establish. And at West Guildford Landfill, we have $89,000 to reconfigure that site for full waste transfer. Again, applying final cover and cap slope, regrading the slope at the landfill site, and then reconfiguring the drop-off areas. This will also help us remedy a legacy fill beyond issue that's been going on for many, many years, which we're working on as well. Next slide, Barbara. We took a look at the landfill hours. As I identified earlier, we changed them in May of last year. One of the changes was to the summer operating hours at all 5 sites. And at those sites, they are currently scheduled to be open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We looked specifically at Halliburton and West Guildford landfill as we received many complaints from residents wanting to access those sites on a Sunday before 11 a.m. And so we found that the number of vehicles using the site after 5 o'clock were quite low in all instances at those 2 sites at Halliburton and West Guildford. So if we look at the next slide, what we're proposing is that starting on May 1st of 2023, at Halliburton and West Guildford landfills during the summer, the Sunday hours would switch from 11 to 7 to 10 to 5. This would help make the residents who are trying to access the site early in the morning have more access to the site. It would also provide some harmonization for our human resource policies and practices around staffing hours and payroll. Next slide, please. We have some special projects planned in 2023. The first is Recycling is Easy, which is a fully funded grant from the Carton Council. We've already received the first installment of this project funding, so it's a direct in and out. This project is a public awareness campaign that will start in the spring of 2023. We will have 3,000 reusable bags to help people collect and transport recycling from their homes to our landfill sites. We'll be doing print and radio advertising and social media, really encouraging the proper recycling of cartons like a Tetra Pak or a milk carton, and also the introduction of a digital waste sorting game to help educate people about proper sorting of the recycling and garbage. In 2023, Continuous Improvement Fund and Stewardship Ontario, they are going to fund the conducting of a waste composition study at the Halliburton landfill, again, to continue learning what's in the blue box and recycling and garbage. Continuous Improvement Fund and Stewardship Ontario would issue the RFP and secure the vendor. We would fall under their umbrella for their program. Because those organizations are very much focused on blue box recycling, we would use our remaining Ontario Municipal Modernization Fund to kind of cap up that the waste audit so that we could also see what's actually in the garbage and recycling in terms of organics and other wastes. The Stewardship Ontario doesn't really care about food waste, but we do, as that's a large component of our waste. So we would want to just top up to make sure we're properly auditing that remaining information. Another project plan for 2023 is actually at the county level. And I know county will likely be discussing this at the county level in January. However, because there's been pilot projects in Dysart, Algonquin Highlands, and Minden Hills, the county is looking at a county-wide food cycler program to compost food waste and help reach climate change mitigation goals. That would be exclusively on the county level, but I just want to make Dysart Council aware that this potential project is happening county-wide. And there'll be more information about that at the county level starting in the new year. And finally, on the last slide here, we'll talk about, as was mentioned, sorry, we're adding $20,000 into our reserve fund for scales. This would only provide one scale. We recognize that we have 3 sites that currently have materials that are that should be weighed and disposed of. So it's in the service delivery review, it had talked about maybe moving construction demolition waste to one single site, for example, as opposed to collecting at 3 sites. That's a larger discussion, but just as Barbara had mentioned, we will now have $120,000 in the reserve for the purchase of a scale. And the next slide, Barbara. Another project that's being looked at is the single tier waste management RFP. I know County Council is talking about this and we'll be talking about it again next week on December 14th. This was a direction from this service delivery review. And so the county is reissuing an RFP to secure a consultant to research and recommend a single tier waste management service delivery model, including the legislative requirements to implement it. The county would contribute half of the cost, with the 4 lower tier municipalities each contributing 12.5% of the cost, which is where that $8,000 comes from. The final report and council presentation would be anticipated in 2023. So we'd see more of this work happening then. Although it doesn't have any immediate budget implications for Dysart, the big thing that is happening within the municipal waste management realm in Ontario is Blue Box transition, or Ontario Regulation 391/21. Basically, starting in July of 2023, Ontario's residential Blue Box program is changing, and I really stress the word residential. Dysart transitions to that new regulation on January 1st, 2024. The entire province, so every municipality, every First Nation will be on the new program by January 1st, 2026. Circular Materials is the producer responsibility organization taking over the province-wide residential Blue Box program. Circular Materials will be making a financial offer to Dysart to operate drop-off locations for residential Blue Box materials on Circular Materials' behalf. Council would then need to decide whether it wishes to accept the financial offer and the operational requirements that would come with that financial offer. At that same time, council would need to decide how it wishes to offer recycling to businesses and organizations which are not included in this regulatory change. We are still waiting for some information around receiving facilities and what the financial offer actually is. So just want council to be aware that coming into the springtime of 2023, there will be a lot of information provided about this Blue Box transition, and council will be making decisions in 2023 that will have long-term impacts on the Blue Box recycling for residents in Dysart. That is the end of my presentation. I'm sure there are questions.
Yes, Councillor Royce.
With the West Guildford site, it's like $89,000 for a final cover and capping. Is that right? There's a lot of road construction going on 118, a lot of material going in there right now. Is that reflected in that $89,000? And is that what that material is being used for?
Yeah, so the construction work that's happening on 118, we have been taking the fill and have been using it to work on the sloping of the West Guildford landfill. So that's been at no cost to us. The $89,000 is an addition to that work that fill that we've already received at that site.
John, what's the cost per ton for C&D waste on the other end? I know we're charging $60 for it at our landfills. Is there an encompassing cost per ton incorporating transport and processing fees down at the other end, or no?
Yes, so we charge residents and pre-approved credit accounts on a cubic yard basis. And we pay per haulage and per ton disposed. I'm just pulling it up so I can give you the correct information here. Sorry, I'm just having to do my math fast. Sorry.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's right. Sorry, I don't have it right in front of me. Give me 1 sec. Sorry.
Sorry.
How fast can I look up a number for you? Sorry.
John, I guess you can't tell me because it wasn't quite the same operation, but what is the cost saving when we're maintaining with our equipment, the C and D waste versus when we contracted it out?
I've only been here when we called out C and D, so I don't really have another option about what.
But I guess you can go back and look at that, can't you?
We can go back and revisit that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be curious to know what we thought we were saving there. And we tie our equipment up as well. Okay.
John, in terms of that number, if it's gonna take some time and what have you, just, we can get that later, I'm sure. It was just a question I had, so.
Yeah, sorry, slow computer.
Sorry.
No, sorry.
And John, I know we're going to hear about it at the county, but I'm a little bit concerned. Like we did do a study before a few years ago about hauling the waste to a central location. And it wasn't feasible because of the size of the county, of course, and the travel time. So what is exactly is the county looking at just to manage recyclables, or are they looking at an overreaching body that would be in charge of everything?
Yeah, so the single tier waste management RFP is looking at whether there's a more effective way of delivering waste management services. It isn't necessarily about making one landfill for the entire county. It's about should waste management maybe sit at a single tier area of responsibility so that the fees, the policies are the same for anywhere within the county. As we get into more and more of these extended producer responsibility arrangements within the province when it comes to waste management, I think of hazardous waste, for example, where each municipality in Haliburton County is managing 6 to 7 agreements with the exact same vendors and service providers. Is that an efficient way of delivering the system when maybe it could be handled by one staff person or one department representing the entire county? But again, that's kind of what the RFP is working to figure out. Sorry, I have that. The answer is $148 per ton of construction and demolition waste. That's the disposal fee.
That includes the transport too, John, is that correct?
No, the transport is $1,400 per trip.
How many tons per trip?
On some trips, you're averaging 30 to 25, 26 to 30 tons, metric tons.
36. Awesome, thank you.
So obviously part of the key here is to make sure we compact those loads, that we get the most on them if we're paying that way, not just dump them in there. Are we doing that? Do we know, or have you been out there, John, to see that?
Definitely, and we've actually gotten in trouble for overloading our C and D loads. Sometimes we're getting too much into the bins and making it unsafe for the Ministry of Transportation. The simple reality is we have a lot of construction activity happening in Dysart, and because there are no private transfer stations within the municipality or within the county, contractors or residents don't want to drive to Bracebridge or Peterborough to access a private transfer station. And so they're reliant on us to provide a drop-off location for someone dropping off a renovation of their kitchen to the leftovers from when they've installed a deck.
And I guess to jump on here, John, I guess the reality is even if we increase our rates to $65, it's not going to cover it, right?
No.
So you have to find that sweet spot somewhere.
Yeah, it's not going to cover for sure.
Yes, John. Needless to say, I can't sit here and not say something about incinerating garbage. I just, after being on council here, going on my 4th term, it just seems like everything's just going up and up and up, but nobody ever talks about it. But it seems to me that it's the most, once it's put in place, it's the most efficient and best way to handle. And needless to say, this garbage situation and waste and is not going to go away. It seems to me like it's just growing and growing, and our costs are going up and up. And I know you and I've talked a lot about it, and I drive you crazy sometimes talking about it, but be ready for another 4 years of it, because I just do not understand why people aren't, the province isn't promoting this in rural Ontario, especially with the travel costs. And we're talking about the environment. I mean, we're hypocrites. We're total hypocrites in this regard, as far as I'm concerned. So thanks for your time.
Well, I just have one more question. You said that each municipality would pay of the fee structure with the county 12.5%, and then the balance would be on the levy. Is that what you said?
So for the single tier waste management RFP, the county would pay 50% and the lower tiers would pay 12.5% each.
Okay, so we pay 40% of the 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like a real good deal to me. Anyway, we'll get to that next week. Good. Anything else for John? Or, okay, thank you, John. I think we're just at lunchtime here now, so Barbara, are we going to take a break and are we going to have the roads? What do you want to do?
Well, it's entirely up to you. We have one more presentation for transportation, and then all the presentations have been completed. So if you're wanting to have discussion after transportation, perhaps it would be a good time to have lunch. And yeah, I'll leave it in your hands.
Can you hang on till after lunch, Rob?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm here all day.
Okay. All right. Well, let's break then and have lunch, and we'll get Rob in right after lunch and then we'll have a discussion.
Okay.
Okay, we're ready. Okay, Rob, we're ready for you. Or Barbara, if you want to introduce them.
Yep. Rob will present transportation. So take it away, Rob.
All right. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So I got a few slides here to go over with you. There's some pretty big numbers. So I guess we'll wait until the end of the transportation side and take some questions. There's some pretty big numbers there to discuss, and hopefully we have a good discussion on it. So the first slide here is the expenses only. And the thing that should jump out at you is the capital expense, which is making up 53% of my budget this year. And we will drill down into that a little further as we move on. Next slide, please, Barbara. So comparing our revenue to expenses, you can see that transportation's asking for a 9.3% increase over 2022. And by and large, our biggest funding is the levy at about 69%. The reserve is funding about 19% this year, which is quite large. And grants basically rounded out at 12%. Next slide, please, Barbara. So as you can see, the biggest driver this year is the capital. It's gone up by about $1.4 million. The maintenance side of things and the overhead are pretty well static. Barbara, if you can go to the next slide, we'll break down the capital a little further. So the road rehabilitation, that's always our big ticket item. Last year we were at about 1.8 million. This year is quite a bit higher, and there's a couple drivers on that I can get into a little later on. But the fleet replacement has gone up about 400,000. Sidewalk replacement has gone through the roof. We're up about 520,000 there. And the bridges, asset management and studies are coming in at about 173,000. And we'll talk about a bit of that further on. Next slide, please. So our road rehab program, so the FDR, drain, base, and double surface treatment, that's where a contractor comes in and they'll absolutely pulverize the entire road. We'll add gravel, we'll ditch the whole thing, we'll add culverts, any improvement we can do. And that's to the tune of about $1 million this year. The overlays, that's a single surface overlay. That's our pavement preservation program. That's not going to make a road any smoother necessarily, but it's going to seal up the cracks. It's going to seal up the road. It's going to extend the life. Close to $600,000 there. The cold constructed asphalt pavement, this is a new process for us. It's not a new process necessarily. Minden Hills has been using it for a few years. This is what we're proposing to do on Buxton Road. It's a road that starts in Highlands East and moves into Dysart. We've learned earlier this year that Highlands East is looking to rehab their portion, and it just makes sense to do ours at the same time. So this $450,000, this is actually over and above what would have been in the normal program. So, but it's just one of those, it's a cost benefit. This process requires a certain tonnage to make it work. So it makes sense for both municipalities to do all the work at the same time, just to make the process work. It's a good candidate for this type of pavement. It truly is a flexible pavement that will go up and down as the frost allows it to. Minden had a section on Brady Lake Road that's been down since 2018 that I've been watching. And I mean, I haven't seen a crack in it yet. So it's going to be a good test section for us. And maybe moving forward, we can get this process into our network a little more often if you could. And the gravel only, that's strictly the gravel roads. As the contractor's in doing our resurfacing, we have them apply some gravel to our gravel only roads. We used to do it in-house, but it's just not cost feasible for us. When they're here, they got the bigger equipment, they can do it more cost effectively. Next slide, please, Barbara. So this is what we're proposing to do as part of our system, our process. So Grass Lake Road, again, that's another one that was not in as far as our normal program. That is, I'm bringing that forward as a staff recommendation, quite honestly. It's a road that's at the end of its life. It's our 8th busiest road we have in the municipality. And the reason it hasn't been picked up sooner is the past council agreed to basically halt rehabilitation of the roads within town until we figure out what we're doing with the sewer system. We don't want to go and rehab a road and then in 3 years dig it up and put a sewer line in. So this is kind of a scaled back process for the Grass Lake Road. We're not going to change any culverts. We're not going to add gravel, any of that. It's strictly tear up the surface that's on there and lay one down on top of it. So that's just from an operational standpoint. We haven't sunk a lot of money into maintenance on it yet, but we don't want to push that much further because once we lose that road, we'll be on it every single day. Moving on to the bottom of the list, Tattersall, that's also an add-on. So council last year, again, it was a road at the end of its life. It's getting quite busy down there and we couldn't maintain it any longer. So we did pulverize it and we added gravel last year just to make it passable. And the intent was to put a surface on it in 2023. Next slide, please, Barbara. So again, these are what we're proposing for a single surface overlay. So again, we won't be doing any capital work on this with in-house staff, no drainage, no culverts. They're just simply going to come in here and go over top of what's there and seal it up. Next slide, Barbara. And same thing with the granular A application. There's no capital work with our forces. They're simply going to come in and fix the surface itself and carry on. Next slide, Barbara. And here we have the CCAP, as we call it. So there's 2 roads in here. So Buxton starts at Highlands East and goes for about just over 3 kilometers. Omega Road comes off of Buxton. It's quite a short road. It just makes sense to do it at the same time. Save us going in there and maintaining that tenth of a kilometer. So moving on to fleet replacement. So this is unusual. We have 2 tandem axle snowplows coming. One was supposed to be here last year. As Barbara mentioned, we do have some supply chain issues. So we are having 2 delivered this year. We're going to have 2 delivered next year as well. It's not ideal by any means, but it's kind of the reality we live in. We're asking for a backhoe loader. The Public Works Department has 3 backhoe loaders in its fleet. 2 of them are stationed at landfills, so Haliburton landfill and West Guilford landfill. The one at the Rhodes Garage is a 2017. It's not an old machine by any means. There's lots of life left in it. It's the 2 other ones that worry us. They're 22 years old now, and they're really starting to take some maintenance money from us, and they're costing time. So what we're proposing is to move our cat backhoe to the West Guilford site and sell that one, and then buy a new backhoe for the Rhodes Garage. And what this will do is it will provide a reliable backup for the Rhodes Garage, in particular during the sweeping season. So once we start sweeping for 2 months in the spring, that backhoe is basically taken out of service and we can't do any culvert maintenance with it. The 1/2-ton pickup, so that's to replace the landfill pickup. It's a 2013. We have 75 grand in there. I'm hoping it comes in under, but it just seems you can't buy much for under 75,000 anymore. The service van is going to be a new addition, or will be a new addition if it's approved, to our fleet. And that's basically to get our mechanic around to the offsite repairs. It's not going to be a full service truck with the welder and the crane and that kind of thing. We're looking for a 4-wheel drive van with an empty shell to carry some tools and some workbenches, that kind of thing. And Barbara had touched on the fuel card lock system. So you'll see this come to council again next week. This was a process that was initiated by the county and some of the lower tiers last year. Dysart at the time did not jump on the tender. It was kind of a, let's wait and see how this works out. We've spoken to the surrounding municipalities. They love the system. It has really taken the administration out of trying to reconcile fuel sheets. Anybody that has tried to do that, it's very time consuming. You never get them reconciled. This way it will automate our gasoline and our diesel usage. We will be recommending that all municipal vehicles fill up at the Rhodes Garage, so we're all using the same system. And based on some analysis, some pricing analysis, if we get our gasoline delivered at or around rack price, we'll have less than a 2-year payback on this system. So to me, it's a very great benefit. It takes the fleet cards out of the equation, and we can put some controls on whether it be a total volume pumped per day or the number of fill-ups per day, that kind of thing. So it's really good checks and balances for our fuel usage. Next one, please, Barbara. Oh, there you are. Sidewalks. Oh, this one hurts. It does. We've been trying to get some sidewalks done for a couple of years now. COVID was the cause initially. Pricing last year basically halted our sidewalk projects. Our pricing last year came in 53% over our estimate. So we did cancel the projects, and council agreed to kind of bundle some more similar works, hopefully to bring the unit price down and make it more cost effective to move ahead. I'm not sure it's going to be the case this year, but all we can do is try. If it comes in high again, we're going to have to prioritize really what projects we do. So the Maple Ave sidewalk, so that was a condition for the garden retirement project. So that was a condition implemented by the ministry, I believe. So we're still trying to complete that. There's the Highland Street section, which is meant to replace the stairs that were taken out a few years ago. So it will go from York down to the government dock, and all the walkways in the Head Lake Park side. So around the fountain on that side of the river, and Mountain Street from Lake Ave to Cedar Ave. There's an asphalt walkway there that needs some attention as well. Next one, please, Barbara. And we put $100,000 in there for bridge preservation. This is very much a moving target. We're not really sure what we're doing there yet. I am still talking with engineers. It sounds like preservation isn't the answer. We're gonna talk more about Toshlong next week. But I can tell you the repairs have been done. There's going to be a new triple load posting on it now, which I'm told is quite high as far as load postings go, but it still may present some maintenance issues, certainly for our larger trucks. And we're just kind of assessing the fire trucks as well right now to see if that places any restrictions on them. So the $100,000 is very much a placeholder. If nothing else, I will be seeking to spend some money on some studies and look towards replacement in 2024. Next one, please, Barbara. So moving on to overhead. So of course, staffing is the big beast in overhead. Next one, please, Barbara. So staffing consists of the director's salaries, the operations manager, the admin assist, all the training and miscellaneous wages. So whatever's not covered in a road maintenance code, if we do anything for, parks or anything like that gets covered in there, and all the stat holidays and vacation all comes from that account. Next one, please, Barbara. So the consulting, so this is our answering service. This is our after hours service for anybody wishing to report an emergency. Dover's Hill Road closure. This is very much a legacy file that's been going on for about 8 years. So we're working with the MTO to formally close the intersection at the top of Dover's Hill. The community safety zone. So we do have consultants looking, going through that process as well. Again, that's driven by the garden retirement development, and that was a condition issued by the MTO. The OFSC trail crossing assessment. So basically we're looking at every trail crossing on municipal roads to look at it for proper signage, sightlines, that kind of thing. That was driven by a request from the HCSA last year for signage up at Halliburton Lake. And the county service delivery review master transportation plan is included in that. So there's about $50,000 in there. So all the lower tiers are putting 50 grand aside, not knowing what the scope of work is going to be yet. That remains to be seen. It could be adequate, it could be low, it could be high. We're not sure yet. It's something we just have to work through. Next one, please. So insurance and utilities, they're pretty self-explanatory. The feasibility study, so this is year 2 of this. So we put $20,000 aside last year. Basically, we want to put out a proposal and have consultants come in and look at our existing facilities. We should be including the fire hall, quite honestly. So that's something I'll be looking at as well. So between the roads facilities and the fire hall is what do we have? What expected growth are we looking at? And what do we really need? Do we need can we just renovate the facility we have? Should we be looking at a new facility somewhere else? We just don't know. Whatever the new facility is will likely include wash bays, sand domes, that kind of thing. Everything that the ministry is probably going to want to see at our works yard. So winter maintenance, this is one of the big beasts. Sanding and plowing, of course, are the lion's share there. I can tell you we've already put out year over year from last year. November was quite a heavy month for us. We've already put out over 1,000 tons of sand. So, I mean, we've got it, at least we're not looking for it. But the big thing is this year, the screening tender really went through the roof on us. So between the screening and the trucking and the salt to pickle the sand, it does cost a lot of money to get the sand in here. So a lot of that is just to get the sand to the yard, and then we got to get it back out on the street again. And of course, we get to sweep it up each spring. Next one, please, Barbara. So these are the top 5 in our summer maintenance. So the hardtop maintenance, that's our spray patching, our pothole patching. That seems to be up and down. We have good years and bad years. drainage maintenance, that's our ditching, our culvert replacement, that kind of thing. Sweeping is quite high this year. We have included some higher rental rates for our fleet as part of this budget. And you will be getting a report on that probably in January. It's something we've been working on for years, quite honestly. And we've never gotten around to finalizing a product, and we think we're there now. So some of the drivers on these maintenance issues are equipment rentals, and sweeping is one of them, only because our street sweeper is expensive and we only use it 3 or 4 months of the year. So brushing, we've got a very aggressive brushing program. So I think we're averaging about 35 or 40 clicks a year the last few years. So we are going to get to a point where we can scale that back. I don't think we're there yet. Hopefully next year we can scale that back a little bit. And washouts, again, that's an animal that's kind of a flipping a coin. We don't know what we're going to get year to year. So anyways, there's some money in there for that should it happen. So that's it from the transportation side, Mayor. So the rest is the sewer, the wastewater plant. So did you want to talk about the transportation side for a bit first? I'm sure there's some questions.
Let's stop there, Rob.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions? Nancy?
So Rob, does any of this of your planned construction this year, is any of that based off the DOT software or the assessments done that we contracted the company actually to drive the roads?
Everything except the Grass Lake, which I'm bringing forward, and the Buxton Omega project, which was in conjunction with Highlands East. So I would say if Highlands East decides not to move ahead with this project, that maybe we should consider waiting as well. It just makes sense. You have to do that. They need a certain volume to make that process work. So.
Rob, with that card lock system, is that, will the township, will Dysart own the card lock itself? Or is that going to be supplied by the fuel supplier?
Yes, we would own it. There'd be a nominal licensing fee and maintenance fee. But the other part of that too, and it doesn't so much impact us, but because all the lower tiers and the county will have the same system, we can go to each other's yards and fill up if need be. It's more beneficial to the county because they kind of cover more ground. But if for some reason we don't have power, we could go fill up somewhere else. So there is some interoperability there as well. So.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Wouldn't be normal if I didn't bring up a special road in my past ward. Rob, Klondike, I don't see it anywhere on the radar. I guess didn't make it again this time, I understand. But I know I'm going to be asked, and I'm sure Barry's also going to be asked. Is there any chance at all that you've got any idea when some type of resurfacing might be happening there?
I don't see it on the horizon. I'd have to check the traffic counts, well, because if it's under 100 cars a day, it's probably not going to see a hard surface.
Okay. And then also I know right now I've driven it a few times. I think it needs to be ditched again, or I forget when it was done last time, but any chance that could happen on Klondike?
Klondike hasn't been ditched since I've been here. So yeah, once we do our construction work, that's what we do is we go around, and that's where the maintenance money comes in. So, I mean, if we want to do something more with Klondike, it wouldn't be so much maintenance money, it'd be capital money, right? But I'd have to drive it. I understand it does need it, Walt. I'd have to drive it and just see where it fits in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions of Rob? Rob, I don't see any, and I think I talked to you about this, and you don't really seem too keen on it, but I still think there's something to be said for roadside mowing. And I don't know. I think some of these narrow roads, people walk on them and they can't get off on the corners, can't get off the road because of and then the brush is coming out. So I don't know if that's going to save any money in the long run or whether it's just a waste of money. I don't know.
Well, if that's what council wants to do is their level of service. I mean, we took that out to sink the money into brushing. Because quite honestly, when the roadside mowing was going on, we were having trouble all of our roads never got done. There was always something missed. Sometimes it was on us, sometimes it was on the contractor, sometimes it was because people were parked on the road and they couldn't get done. So to us, it was a bit of a nuisance. It was a maintenance headache to try and chase the lawnmowers around. But if it's something council wants to entertain, I mean, we can look at pricing and maybe group tendering with the county.
Well, what I see is now the brush is right out to the road, so you can't cut it with the mower on the side of a tractor. You're gonna have to brush it. So I don't know what.
Normally when you spec roadside mowing, you ask for 5 feet from the edge of lane, and there's a lot of spots you can't get 5 feet from the edge of lane. So there wasn't really a net benefit that we saw in most spots. If there's some problem spots, maybe we can target some problem spots.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can take a look at some selective areas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know the West Shore always jumps out at me. I mean, it's brushed right out to the edge of lane. Not now, we just brushed it, but give it 3 years, it'll be right back out again. So
yeah, for sure. I don't know. Anybody else got any questions for Rob? And Buxton Road is in this budget. That's 9 point something, isn't it?
yes.
Yeah, okay. So I guess that's where we are.
I mean, they're big numbers, but it's just kind of where we are, right? We'll know better because we're entertaining going on a joint tender with the county for the surface treatment. We're going to maintain our own process, but just kind of jump on with them for the work, and we'll see where the prices come in at. So, I mean, that's just the unknown with everybody right now. Between the asphalt paving for the sidewalks or the surface treatment, you just don't know where they're going to come in. So hopefully if we get out early enough, we'll get some decent pricing.
So you can't put that out unless you intend to do it though, can you? You
can. Yeah. 2021, we actually canceled the call for tender because the numbers came in way too high.
Well, I think we should get it out as soon as we can to get the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, we have the volume to go by ourselves, but I mean, there may be some savings on mobilization and that kind of thing if we go with everybody else.
Okay. Anybody got any other questions? Okay, it looks like you've satisfied everybody or confused them, one or the other.
Glad I got you after all.
Okay, so we'll move on to the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. So the wastewater treatment plant and the collection system, that's a user pay system. So what you're seeing here, all the maintenance operation and capital is all funded by user fees. So you can see the expenses year over year. Next one, please, Barbara. And here's the big one. You're looking at the user fees are going up, and that's because of the asset management plan. So the AMP calls for an 8.1% year over year increase for user fees. And that is meant for the operation, maintenance and replacement of the system. Next one, please, Barbara. No, next one, please, Barbara. Yeah, so this is a breakdown of where the user fees come from, 55% residential. And what I can tell you is our plant is getting full. We still have some room left in it yet. But probably throughout this winter and spring, we're going to have some conversation on what we want to do, if we want to do any expansion, either at the plant itself or in the collection system. So it is on the horizon. So it's going to be quite a conversation, I'm sure of it.
I don't think we have much choice there. We're going to grow.
Well, that's just it. If you don't expand, then the growth stops, right? So the expenses, the big one there is the operating. So next one, please, Barbara. So Clearford Waterworks is our operating contractor there. So it includes all the daily operations, the sampling, the testing, all the after-hour calls out, the sludge haulage, and the annual reporting to the ministry. They're also the liaison with the ministry. So we've had a very good relationship with them for many, many years. Next one, please, Barbara. So line capital and maintenance, annual flushing, we do it every year. They do it in the fall typically. Odor control at a couple spots, refurbishing some pumps, which those prices are going through the roof. We're actually Looking at the cost of refurbish versus replace at this point, it's the refurbish costs are going up that much. And there's some PLC upgrades. So those are the brains of the pumping stations. We're attempting to do some this year, but the parts availability are 8 to 10 months out. So everything's really lagging behind. Again, it goes to show supply chain issues. Next one, please. And the plant capital and maintenance. So that's part of the PLC upgrade as well. And there's 2 plant pumps that we're looking at refurbishing. So that's a short and sweet on the wastewater plant. Say it's doesn't have any impact on the levy, but happy to take any questions on the maintenance program there.
And how much did you say the user fee went up?
8.1%. That's included, I believe, Barbara, in this.
Yes.
How many dollars is that?
$56.
So anybody on sewer is automatically is going to get a tax increase for $66. And commercial would be quite a bit more than that.
Yep, the fee would go up 8.1% as well.
As well as metered.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well as metered. So it's quite an increase there. Okay. Well, I think we'll be coming back, probably Rob, in January with something from proposed sewer expansion, do you think?
Yeah, I think we'll have some conversations, hopefully before then, just to get the ball rolling. But yeah, it's something we're gonna have to move on sooner than later.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions for Rob on sewage? Okay. Okay, I guess you're good to go. If you want to stay and visit.
We're stamped. So, okay. Did you want me to stick around, Mayor, or?
Well, if you want to, but I think we're basically done the meeting.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so all the presentations have been completed now, and council's been provided with quite a bit of information to digest and look over and make any recommendations back to staff.
Yeah, and if there's anything you want more information on, I know that's very, very high level. Just let me know and I'll have it ready for the next meeting.
okay, thanks, Rob. So. Is everybody happy to take away from today and think about this? Yes.
So would our next budget meeting, we do more, kind of say, we got to decrease this, that, the other thing, and do a line by line?
Yeah. Yes, I like
Would
to do
that-
that, but I'd also like to say it to staff, go back and look at what you really need and what you'd ask for. Because sometimes there's quite a difference there. So the more you can do, might be better for your department than for us to do it when we're not working there. So I just throw that out there, do if you can.
And so I just also like to share with council that they have been provided with the detailed budget package, and there is a lot of detailed information there to help them better understand how some of the numbers have been formulated. And if there are any questions as you're reviewing that information, certainly feel free to reach out to me. You can send me an email, you can call me. I'll gladly take the time to review your questions.
You have any idea what the education tax rate is doing?
I have no word on that. I can tell you that it's remained flat for the last 2 years.
Has. Okay. I was hoping there'd be a little movement there in the right direction. Okay. Councillor Casey, did you have a question?
More of a statement in that, just in my own opinion, it's a roads budget seems to be high on the maintenance because they're playing a bit of catch up because they stopped doing maintenance on local roads until they got the sewer issue, some direction on what they're going to do with that. But also the other 2 dump trucks are taking a good bite out of the budget as a whole. So even though, collectively, if we say in different department heads can hold off on certain things, it could wait till next year. it might be another angle too to help everybody out, but my own opinion.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, all good points, in terms of the vehicles and equipment that are being recommended in the transportation budget, the only vehicle that is not funded by the reserve is the service van. So all the other vehicles and equipment are being funded through the reserve, the vehicle and equipment reserve, which means that it's a net impact of 0 on the levy.
So what we do is we charge ourselves rental and we put it in a fund. And that's how we use it. Okay.
It's kind of like a savings account. And so when in the year we need to purchase a piece of equipment, then we draw from that reserve fund. And this here alleviates any peaks and valleys on the municipal levy.
Okay, is everyone good then? Then we have a resolution to receive the budget review first draft.
I'll read
Moved by
that.
Pat, seconded by. You're gonna read
Yeah,
after?
you want me, oh, I'll read it after. You tell me the mover and seconder.
Counselor Casey. And Counselor Roberts.
Okay, be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the first draft of the municipality Dysart 2023 budget.
All in favor? Carried. Okay. And then we have a resolution for a confirming bylaw. Do you want to read that? Okay.
Sure, I'll read it,
Read
right?
that.
Okay, be it resolved that bylaw 2022-109, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the special meeting of council held on December 9th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto.
Need a mover? Counselor Sawyer and Counselor McKechnie, all in favor? Carried. And the last one's the adjournment.
Okay. So be resolved that council adjourn its special meeting held on December 9th, 2022 at 1:04 p.m.
Okay, Tammy and Carm.
Perfect.
Good.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.